Chapter 658. Poor Umo. The third battle was Diling against the 12th, and Diling had won. Then Duan Wu Dao chose Qingmeng Xian and Qingmeng Xian gave up. Jun She looked at Umo and smiled indifferently. Jun She's smile made Umo upset. He was choosing him again. This time I'm sure that I will win, said Umo. His pupils looked ice cold. 7 days before, he had taken everything to heart. Umo was an incredible cultivator, but he had surprisingly lost to Jun Shi from Dragon Mountain. He had lost face. Boom! A terrifying vortex appeared. There weren't many actions, no words, only a vortex which emerged out of Umo's body and moved towards Jun Shi. It looked dreadful. Vital Qi of Righteousness, said Jun Shi as a terrifying golden light emerged out of his body and rose up in the air. A gigantic Qi of Righteousness dashed to the skies. A gigantic vital energy of righteousness. Die! Shouted Umo furiously. He then assaulted the atmosphere with his fists towards Jun Shi, who just stared back at Umo. His vital Qi of righteousness was incredible. It seemed like no evil Qi could pierce through it. Umo's punch made the Qi of righteousness fluctuate even more violently. It was insanely dashing to the skies now. Huh! Umo was astonished. How was that possible? He couldn't pierce through his vital energy of righteousness. He had broken through to the very top of the Hien Qi layer. How could it be that difficult? His pupils turned black and white. Some trigrams patterns appeared in his eyes as well as in his hand. He was persevering but wanted to destroy Jun Shi's Qi of righteousness. Boom! Boom! That terrifying vital energy of righteousness continued to dash towards the skies. Jun Shi was bathing in a pure and holy energy. The trigrams pattern still had no effect. Jun Shi is even scarier than 7 days before, thought the crowd, shivering. His energy was as gigantic as a mountain. You thought that you had become strong enough to defeat me after training in that special place? Asked Jun Shi. Umo was shaking. At that moment Jun Shi's eyes were twinkling and looked dazzling. It was the first time that such dazzling lights appeared in his eyes. Don't forget that I entered the 5th special area. Even before the special area I was stronger than you, so it makes sense that you are still weaker than me, said Jun Shi, jumping forwards. His terrifying energy of righteousness invaded the entire atmosphere. There was nothing else but righteousness. Huh! The crowd was astonished. Jun Shi's Qi was really terrifying. It was entirely gold, was able to turn into a hurricane. But then it formed into a golden dragon. The crowd could sense it, they felt tiny insects. Apart from the crowd, Umo also had that feeling. He felt like a piece of trash in front of that energy of righteousness which could annihilate any evil person. Umo had no more self-confidence. He was just staring at Jun Shi bathing in his golden energy. You are a genius? Asked Jun Shi mockingly. Those words painfully resonated in Umo's heart and brain. The terrifying dragon hurricane swept away, and took Umo along with it. His body was blown away. Jun Shi had an overwhelming victory. Jun Shi won? The crowd was shaking. Everything had happened so fast. What was going on? The fight had just started. Jun Shi released his energy of righteousness and oppressed Umo so much so that he flew away. The difference between the two was so much. Jun Shi's words were resonating in people's thoughts. Was Umo a genius? Was he really one of the 8 most outstanding geniuses of Xueyu? Was he too weak, or was Jun Shi too strong? Umo groaned. The energy of righteousness had invaded his body and he was fighting it. Next, said Jun Shi calmly, turning around and going back to his seat. Umo couldn't believe what he heard. No, we're not done, said Umo, suddenly looking particularly evil. He couldn't take his eyes off of Jun Shi. Enough! Shouted a voice which resonated in Umo's brain painfully. Umo raised his head and saw a pair of ice-cold eyes staring at him. I told you. On the path of cultivation, your heart must become as solid as a mountain if you don't want it to break, said Jun Shi. He had won. For the 6th battle, Shueisha chose Yunfei Yang. Just like Lin Feng had expected, Yunfei Yang immediately forfeited. The 7th battle was Umo's turn, but because he had already been chosen and had already fought, he would have to wait for the next fight. Qiqing Jianling Xiao chose Ku Yaotong the Dead Tree. Both of them were part of the 8 most outstanding disciples of Xueyu. This time Qi Qingjian showed no mercy. He immediately unsheathed 7 swords which all contained sword intent. The dead tree had death in his eyes as he opened them. In a flash, everything was filled with the dead energy. But in the air, Ling Zhao's swords cut through the energy. Rosy clouds emerged out of the swords and dashed to the skies. Soon after Ku Yaotong lost. There were only 15 people, so when it arrived to Lu Yuqin Yu Xiaozhao's turn, everybody had already fought once. So she chose the 14th cultivator and won. During the second round, Lin Feng chose the Ice Soul girl. Using his sword intent, he destroyed the girl's ice soul. His sword couldn't be frozen, thus Lin Feng won again. Tang Yu chose the one with the silver sword and won as well. It was their second victory already. Then Diling chose Qingming Xian, who immediately forfeited. Then Duan Wudao chose Ku Yaotong. Everybody thought that the battle would be disastrous, but Duan Wudao was way too violent and powerful. It seemed like he only held disdain for the dead tree. Even though Duan Wudao was younger than him, he had destroyed him in one punch and won. Junemo Shi this time chose Lu Yuqin Yu Xiaoxiao and won. Then Xuesha chose to fight against Ling Xiao. Xuesha's deadly qi collided with Ling Zhao's sword, and there was a huge explosion. However, in the end Xuesha won. Xuesha had won twice. After, it was Yumo's turn to choose. He chose Yunfei Yang. He was the only one left who hadn't fought during that round. Unfortunately, I cannot kill you, said Yumo evilly to Yunfei Yang. Lin Feng wasn't the only one who had offended him. Junemo Shi had also made him appear as a buffoon. Now he wanted to regain face by crushing Yunfei Yang. Unfortunately, Yunfei Yang would probably immediately forfeit and would refuse to fight. How come you're still standing there? Yunfei Yang jumped forwards and looked back Yumo. He sounded indifferent. Yumo was astonished. Yunfei Yang was going to fight? Yunfei Yang had forfeited when Xuesha had challenged him. He had also forfeited against Ku Yaotong the dead tree. But in front of Yumo he was going to fight? Why? Yumo looked glum. But then he realized what was happening. He wanted to humiliate Yunfei Yang, and the latter knew that. So by accepting the challenge he was alternatively humiliating Yumo. You are not giving up? Asked Yumo. Yunfei Yang ignored him and immediately jumped forwards. In a flash, a gigantic rumbling sound spread in the air. The force of the earth and sky became heavy. Yumo pulled a long face. Not only wasn't Yunfei Yang going to forfeit, but he had immediately took the offensive. Die! This time Yumo was infuriated. Terrifying trigrams appeared. Without hesitation his blood-like 8 trigrams surrounded Yunfei Yang's body. Chapter 659. Blood-red sword, you asked me to forfeit? I will really wonder how you plan to back that up. At least, you should be able to one-shot me if you're strong enough to ask me that, said Yunfei Yang with a cold smile. He jumped forwards and terrifying rumbling sounds spread in the air. He condensed the force of the earth and sky. Once again, he was borrowing the strength of the planet which enveloped the 8 red trigrams. Since you don't want to forfeit, I will teach you a lesson, said Yumo coldly. The 8 trigrams looked even more frightening. And then Yumo shouted furiously, annihilate! The 8 trigrams were moving chaotically through the air. A black and white color then rose up and moved towards Yunfei Yang. This time Yumo was using his full strength. It seemed like he wanted to kill Yunfei Yang. He wanted to regain his popularity. The force of the earth and sky is mine. A strong force can annihilate anything, shouted Yunfei Yang furiously. Pure qi was emitting whistling sounds in the air as Yunfei Yang started running. Boom boom boom. The ground was shaking violently, some fissures even appeared. The force of the earth and sky was that powerful. Yunfei Yang's qi and force were dashing boundlessly, and then turned into an airstream spinning rapidly. He was fusing together with the earth. 7th Xian Qi layer. The crowd was astonished, extremely surprised. Yunfei Yang had broken through to the 7th Xian Qi layer. He had been hiding his real strength. Apart from his terrifying force of the earth and sky, he had also broken through to the very top of the 7th Xian Qi layer. That guy. He has incredibly frightening methods. And to top that, he managed to hide his strength from us, thought Lin Feng, smiling. Yunfei Yang and Lin Feng were very similar. They were both hiding their real cultivation levels. Yumo was astonished. He even looked glum. No wonder Yunfei Yang had accepted the challenge. He wasn't scared at all because he had hidden his real strength. 7th Xianqi layer or not, I will still kill you, scorned Yuemo coldly. A terrifying spirit qi emerged and rolled into the atmosphere abruptly. His 8 trigrams spirit looked terrifying. In Yumo's eyes everything was black and white. And blood red. 8 trigrams, total annihilation. Yuemo closed his eyes and a myriad of trigrams appeared. Then they moved towards Yunfei Yang at full speed. Yunfei Yang was surrounded by the 8 trigrams. His pure qi was being consumed. Boom 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 boom. The ground was shaking insanely. This time Yunfei Yang continued running and the force of the earth and sky was oppressing Yumo's body. He then condensed all the force he could onto Yuemo, creating an intense pressure. You're still not dying, shouted Yuemo, whose eyelids were shaking. His world was still black and white. He was maneuvering his trigrams back to block Yunfei Yang's way. Now he wanted to kill Yunfei Yang more than anything. Huh. Lin Feng frowned. This time Yuemo was using his full strength. He wanted to kill Yunfei Yang. And for the latter, the situation seemed dangerous. Boom boom. But the sound of Yunfei Yang's steps were spreading in the air. Yunfei Yang arrived in front of Yuemo and condensed a massive amount of force to oppress Yuemo. It seemed like Yuemo was going to be crushed under the pressure. Die! Die! They both shouted at the same time. Their hearts were both filled with murder. Boom! A terrifying force violently crashed onto Yumo's body. Even though Yuemo was stronger than Yunfei Yang, Yuemo was projected backwards and his blood splashed. He had been injured. Yunfei Yang had condensed so much force that he could injure Yuemo. The crowd couldn't believe it. They had never thought Yunfei Yang was that strong. You will die! Shouted Yuemo like a madman. There were trigrams on Yunfei Yang's body, and Yuemo still had some around his own body. Yunfei Yang was already oppressed by the trigrams, so Yuemo still had hope. I give up, said Yunfei Yang, moving back. He had injured Yuemo but was still forfeiting. It was enough for him. You will die no matter if you forfeit or not. Today you will die, said Yuemo, looking sick. Blood was pouring out his mouth, making him look possessed. His terrifying trigram swallowed Yunfei Yang's pure qi and enveloped him. Yunfei Yang had given up, but Yuemo still wanted to kill him? The crowd was shaking. Yuemo was really furious. He had gone insane. He had lost his first battle against Jun Emoshi, and then was injured by Yunfei Yang during the second. That was just too much for him. Yuemo had forgotten about the rules of the competition and went insane. Die! Yuemo had gone mental. He had to kill Yunfei Yang. Yunfei Yang's face drastically changed. He thought he would be safe after forfeiting. But then a terrifying hurricane appeared on the fighting stage. A red bloodlight had appeared. The crowd only saw a blood-red setting sun appear. Huh. The crowd was stunned. They couldn't tell what was going on or what that blood-red thing was. It seemed like a silhouette was appearing. Thurr. A subtle sound spread in the air that wasn't loud at all. It seemed like wings had appeared on that setting sun. It was dazzling as it streaked across the sky. Fuck off, shouted Yuemo furiously. He then punched the atmosphere with terrifying strength. Several more sounds were heard and a weak, frail blood-red light could be seen. It seemed like the strength of his hand was gradually being cut. In a flash, Yumo's sleeve was in pieces and blood gushed out of his hand. Ah! Yuemo suddenly sensed a terrifying pain in his arm. His entire arm was swallowed by that blood-red light. At the same time, his body was also projected backwards. Lacerate. Another blood-red light spread in the air and it was just as terrifying. Yuemo released a terrifying physical strength to cut the blood-red light into two. The moment when the light disappeared, the crowd could clearly see what was happening. On the fighting stage, a silhouette in white clothes had appeared. That person looked thin and desolate. In his hand was a blood-red sword that looked dazzling and bloodthirsty. Lin Feng. The crowd couldn't contain themselves. Lin Feng had surprisingly gotten involved. That blood sword of his was terrifying. Now Yumo's sleeve was minced and blood was gushing everywhere. Lin Feng had injured him with his sword before. How strong! Thought the crowd. Many had even stood up. They were enthralled with Lin Feng. They wanted to see him use his full strength. Could it be that he could defeat Yuemo, who had broken through to the very top of the 8th Xianqi layer? Umo looked ice-cold and stared back at Lin Feng. He had been injured again. He had been injured by Yun Fei Yang and now by Lin Feng, someone who he had considered an insect. In the evil area he had almost killed Lin Feng. Now Lin Feng was strong enough to injure him with his sword. Shameless bastard. You attacked me by surprise, said Umo coldly, while insisting on the word surprise because he wanted to keep face. I attacked you from the front, not the back, explained Lin Feng indifferently. He held his bloodthirsty sword firmly. He then added coldly, don't forget that you were the first one to break the rule. Then Lin Feng turned around and moved to Yun Fei Yang. A moment before, Umo didn't have the time to take care of Yun Fei Yang when Lin Feng attacked him. The trigrams had disappeared already and Yun Fei Yang looked normal again. Are you alright? Asked Lin Feng. I'm alright. He's worse than I am, joked Yun Fei Yang. He didn't care about the result of the battle. What was important was his heart. The most important thing was to surpass oneself. Strength didn't matter that much, even if the results of a battle were predetermined. Once the body and mind were determined, they couldn't be influenced by such reasonings. The most important thing to him was to become better, and that was enough. Yun Fei Yang had just attacked Umo and had injured him. That's exactly what it was about, hurting other people. Since I am more hurt than you, do you want to continue the battle? Asked Umo darkly, staring at Yun Fei Yang. No need. I forfeited, replied Yun Fei Yang calmly. He didn't care. Continue, said Lin Feng. He raised his head and looked at Xue Wuchang, then asked, Mister, it's already the end of the second round. It's my turn now, so can I challenge him? Lin Feng was pointing at Umo. The crowd was silent. Lin Feng wanted to challenge Umo for the third round. Chapter 660. A sword destroying the atmosphere. Lin Feng was challenging Umo. Xue Wuchang's eyes twinkled. He remained silent for a while but looked at Umo and said, he broke the rules first. Even if it's another round, it's no good to fight twice in a row. But if Umo is willing to fight, then I have no objections. The crowd looked to Umo after they heard Xue Wuchang. Would he accept even though he is injured? Umo didn't know what to say looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng had obtained the first jade key, so Umo had no occasion to challenge him before. He had always thought that he would be the last person Lin Feng decided to challenge, but he had been looking forward to that fight. Since the beginning, he had wanted to kill Lin Feng. However, Umo hadn't anticipated that Lin Feng would challenge him during the third round of the final battles. Umo glared at Lin Feng coldly. He thought that Lin Feng's sword was very powerful. He could even use sword intent. There was still a difference of 3 cultivation layers between them. Could Lin Feng really compete with him? Umo decided that it was impossible. Lin Feng was challenging him and he was going to die because of it. Of course I agree, why wouldn't I? Said Umo, looking back at the blood on his arm. His pupils looked just as cold as before. Lin Feng was going to die. Lin Feng wanted to kill Umo even more when his eyes. In the evil area, Lin Feng was so much weaker than Umo, but now. Lin Feng glanced at Yun Fei Yang and smiled. Go back, he's mine. When Yun Fei Yang saw how confident Lin Feng was, he smiled and said, all right, if you can kill him, don't show any mercy. Of course, Lin Feng said, nodding. Umo wanted to kill Lin Feng. Why would Lin Feng show mercy? Lin Feng shook his hand and a pill appeared. He looked at Umo and said, that pill will cure all your injuries. He threw the pill at Umo. Umo stretched his hand and caught the pill. He was speechless. Lin Feng was giving him a pill to recover? The crowd was just as bewildered. Lin Feng was that confident? Don't worry, that pill is a real one. With Mr. Xue Wuchang and all the strongest cultivators of Xueyu here, how could I think to poison you? Take it. If you die, people will avenge you. If you manage to kill me, I will die without regrets just as well. All right, very good, said Umo with an ice-cold smile. He swallowed the pill and a pleasant feeling invaded his body. As expected, his injuries caused by Yun Fei Yang and Lin Feng immediately healed. Even his physical wounds disappeared, and his pure qi was stronger than before. Now let's fight, said Lin Feng indifferently. The crowd looked impatient. They wanted to see that battle. Lin Feng was going to fight against one of the 8 most outstanding disciples of Xueyu. Was Lin Feng going to become one of the 8 most outstanding disciples of Shuiyu? Besides, Lin Feng was going to fight against an extremely strong one. Umo, I've wanted to kill you for a long time. Now you're begging for it yourself, giggled Umo. He jumped forwards and impressed Lin Feng with his peak 8th Xianqi layer power. You think that you are so strong because you can use some sword intent? There is a huge difference between your cultivation level and mine. You simply cannot compete with me, said Umo. He didn't immediately use his 8 trigrams like he had against Yun Fei Yang. He was trying his terrifying force instead. Indeed, there is a huge difference. However, with the strength of the 5th Xianqi layer, I can kill people of the 7th Xianqi layer easily. If I was at the 6th Xianqi layer, wouldn't I be stronger? Asked Lin Feng coldly. He was smiling resplendently. After that, Lin Feng made a step forwards and released a terrifying sword energy. Lin Feng's pure qi was revolving around his body at full speed. 6th Xianqi layer. All of a sudden Lin Feng's qi was of the 6th Xianqi layer, not of the 5th. Surprisingly, he had hidden his strength and Umo hadn't seen it. Honestly, nobody had. Lin Feng had studied an impressive secret skill. So what if you broke through to the 6th Xianqi layer? The difference between each cultivation layer at the Xianqi layer is huge. The difference between a cultivator at the 6th Xianqi layer and a cultivator of the 8th Xianqi layer is too great. Besides, I am not at the 7th Xianqi layer, I am at the very top of the 8th Xianqi layer. I am not afraid of you, you can only die. After remaining silent for a moment, Umo said those words again. He was threatening Lin Feng. Is that so? Said Lin Feng with a cold smile. He jumped forwards again and released a terrifying pure qi which dashed to the skies. The crowd was shivering. How was that possible? The crowd was surprised with his next step. Lin Feng had released an energy and force equal to the 7th Xianqi layer. How could Lin Feng have broken through to the 7th Xianqi layer? Could it be due to the gifts he received in the special area? Even though the special areas were incredible places, the others hadn't broken through to higher cultivation layers like that. How could Lin Feng have broken through 2 cultivation layers in a row? Those who had gone with him to Shengong were even more speechless. They knew how incredible the special areas were. But it was impossible for Lin Feng to have broken through 2 cultivation layers in a row. Absolutely impossible. Especially in 7 days. Did Lin Feng hide his cultivation level before? That was impossible. People were all wondering how that was possible. Now, are you as confident as before? Asked Lin Feng. He was holding his bloodthirsty sword obliquely. Terrifying whistling sounds were spreading in the atmosphere. His sword intent surrounded Umo. Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword could cut through the entire atmosphere. Die! Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword started dancing. It was moving at an inconceivable speed. A blood-red light shot out towards Umo. Go! Shouted Umo furiously. He shook his hand and a terrifying strength moved towards Lin Feng's red light. Some muffled sounds spread as Lin Feng's sword lacerated that physical strength. It was too sharp. Die! Shouted an ice-cold voice. Umo was stunned. He raised his head and noticed that Lin Feng was attacking him again. The red light of his sword looked particularly terrifying. 8 trigrams! Shouted Umo unsteadily. Lin Feng's sword was way too fast. The reflections on it looked like shooting stars. Umo didn't have a single second to breathe. The 8 trigrams moved swiftly through the air, and then the blood-red light of the sword was reflecting on them. Umo wanted to kill Lin Feng just like he had tried to kill Yun Fei Yang. During this crucial moment, Lin Feng decided to close his eyes. His body and mind were in perfect harmony. His body was in perfect harmony with his energies, with his sword, with the earth and the sky. Zero. A terrifying sword qi moved straight through the atmosphere with insane speed. Those in the crowd not already standing quickly did and started shaking. That sword was too fast. A blood-red light invaded the entire arena. It seemed like the whole crowd was bathing in a sea of blood. It even looked like it was raining blood. It was a shower of bloodthirsty swords lacerating everything, including the trigrams. 12 swords, said a voice coming from the sky. An infinite number of red lights were pouring. The 8 trigrams hadn't collided with Lin Feng. Instead they were lacerated by Lin Feng's sword. What terrifying swordplay, thought the crowd. They were astonished. Umo looked absolutely enraged. His entire physical strength dashed to the skies. He was using all his strength he could muster at the top of the 8th Xianqi layer. Without restraint, his 8 trigrams soared to the skies and seemed heavy, like they contained some sanguinary energies. Yumo's eyes had become bloodshot. Only some slight tearing sounds spread in the air. No explosion or quakes. An incredible blood-red light seemed like it was wreaking havoc on the stage. Umo looked particularly cruel and evil, again like a madman. "Even if you're insane, you will die," Lin Feng said. 13th Sword. Chapter 661. One sword. Blood-red lights transformed into a vortex as Lin Feng's sword fell from the sky. His bloodthirsty sword was destroying the entire space, and it seemed like nothing else existed but that sword. Umo is in danger, the crowd thought. All of their attention was on the sword. They couldn't see Lin Feng's silhouette anymore. They could only see a bloodthirsty sword moving with an indomitable will. Nobody had expected such strength. Nobody had believed that Lin Feng would be able to deploy such a sword attack. Ah! A blood-curdling shriek spread in the air. Umo's blue veins were looking particularly swollen, almost like he was about to explode. He had never thought that he would be in such a difficult situation against Lin Feng. "Stop!" shouted a voice which made the entire stadium shake. Everybody's heart skipped a beat. Lin Feng was in symbiosis with his heart at that moment, and that voice made his entire soul tremble. He let out a groan from the pain. He had to leave his trance-like mental state of mind and came back to reality. His sword force also went back to normal. "Go!" shouted Umo violently. He condensed all the physical strength he could to soar into the sky and bombard Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword. More subtle sounds spread in the air. The red light from the sword impenetrable. The crowd only saw Umo get projected backwards with his blood splashing out. Umo looked like a madman the way he was looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng descended from the sky and landed. The tip of his sword rested on the fighting stage with Umo's blood was dripping from it. Lin Feng looked like a proud hero. Lin Feng turned around and looked back at Umo, who had landed far away in the distance. The shout from before was probably Umo's teacher, who had tried to distract Lin Feng. Lin Feng had just sensed his soul shake from that soul attack. If he hadn't shouted, Lin Feng would have killed Umo. Shui Wuchang looked at that person. You could tell how furious he was from eyes. "Umo already lost. I am just forfeiting for him. I won't get involved again. I only wanted to save his life and nothing more," explained that person, rising up in the air and frowning. He sounded calm as he defended himself. "That shout was an attack and you say you didn't get involved?" said Lin Feng furiously, looking at Umo's teacher. That teacher was a tiny little person, but he was monstrously strong. He had hurt Lin Feng's soul a moment before with only a shout, so that teacher must have already broken through to the Tianqi layer. With one shout, he could injure cultivators of the Xianqi layer. The Tianqi layer is way beyond the Xianqi layer. Umo's teacher hadn't only broken through to the first Tianqi layer, he was much stronger. "Little boy, be quiet. There's no need to make big gestures here. Umo forfeited, that's all. Go back to your seat now. Let the next battle start." "Thank you," said the teacher indifferently, glancing down at Lin Feng. He even sounded like he was threatening Lin Feng to a certain extent. Big gestures? Go back to his seat? Was Lin Feng the first one who wanted to kill in this match? Ridiculous. Lin Feng didn't pay any more attention to that teacher. He looked at Shui Wuchang and asked, "Mister, did they violate the rules?" "Indeed," said Shui Wuchang, nodding. "I believe you then," said Lin Feng while bowing. Immediately after, he looked at Umo and released a terrifying sword energy which was seemingly even stronger than before. The sword energy was extremely sharp and was lacerating the atmosphere. The whistling sounds it was emitting were piercing painfully through people's eardrums. The crowd wasn't sure what he was doing. Was he going to continue the battle and kill Umo? Shui Wuchang made a step forward and arrived in front of Umo's teacher. He then said coldly, "All the participants of the great competition of Shui, you are geniuses. Xingong doesn't hope that they will die. If Umo hadn't initially wanted to kill Lin Feng, I would stop Lin Feng now. But since Umo has been trying to kill Lin Feng this whole time, the result is logical. I said it once, if you get involved once again, you will die here in Micheng." "Die in Micheng?" Everyone's hearts were beating extra quick from the stress. Xue Wuchang was furious. He despised Yumo's teacher. Yumo and Lin Feng could solve their problems by themselves. Nobody could get involved. Even if Yumo's teacher was an extremely strong cultivator of the Tianqi layer, Shen Gong wouldn't allow him to interfere again. This time he would kill him. How incredible! They are so cruel. The crowd was extremely excited. Lin Feng was cruel, and Xue Wuchang was just as cruel. A cultivator of the Tianqi layer had just attacked Lin Feng yet. He wanted to continue his battle against Yumo. The more he fought, the more he wanted to kill Yumo. This time the Tianqi cultivator wouldn't get involved. Yumo was face to face with Lin Feng and Yumo's teacher was facing Xue Wuchang. What could the teacher do now? Yumo's teacher didn't care about Xue Wuchang, but Shen Gong was a different story. Xue Wuchang was the manager of the great competition of Xueyu. He represented Shen Gong and its authority. What he said was Shen Gong's word. If he got involved again, Mi Chang would become his final destination. An incredible cultivator of the Tianqi layer was now helpless. Lin Feng was still firmly holding his sword. He slowly walked towards Yumo and said coldly, "You wanted to kill me back in the evil area. Back then you didn't think such a day would come." Yumo looked ferocious and hideous. He had, of course, never thought such a thing would happen. Not even in his worst nightmares. Back in the evil area, he had humiliated Lin Feng and considered him as an insect. He wanted to kill him then, but now the table was turned. What a sad truth. The participants of the competition were narrowing their eyes. Lin Feng was really strong. He had even managed to defeat Yumo. The entire crowd looked excited. These battles were incredible, brutal, dazzling. They had never thought that Lin Feng would be so incredible at the competition. Of course, it wasn't such a pleasant surprise for some people. Like certain people from Tianfeng or those of the Wanshou sect, or even for Yu Qingshan. They hadn't left yet because they had all been waiting for Yumo to kill Lin Feng. But just like in their worst nightmares, they were devastated to see Lin Feng succeed. His sword qi was becoming stronger and stronger. Lin Feng, with his state of mind and willpower, was starting to leave tears in the air. His sword was moving straight towards Yumo. No. People's hearts were pounding violently. It was impossible. Lin Feng's sword intent was becoming stronger. How's that possible? Lin Feng hit his cultivation level and his real strength. A short time before, his sword intent was at the first level, but now it was at the third. His sword intent had increased by 2 levels. Yumo was astonished. His heart hurt from the pressure. Why had he put himself in such a situation? Could it be that Lin Feng is still becoming stronger? Thought the crowd. They kept shaking their heads. It was impossible. Lin Feng had already become so strong and there were limits. He couldn't be so much stronger in such a short time. It was impossible according to the laws of cultivation. His sword intent stopped at level 3 and left the atmosphere filled with sword qi. Blood was still dripping from his sword. Lin Feng walked slowly towards Yumo and said, "Do you understand? A moment ago I just used you to practice my sword intent, that's all." Practice his sword intent? Lin Feng's words were resonating in everyone's heads. Yumo was scared. A moment before, Lin Feng had used him to increase his sword intent, just like a guinea pig. What a humiliation. Boom! It seemed like the atmosphere was going to collapse with all that sword energy. It was everywhere as Lin Feng started moving swift like the wind. "I only need one sword attack to kill you actually," said Lin Feng. Then his sword started moving even faster. A blood-red light descended from the sky as it was being cut in half. Immediately after, the crowd saw Yumo terrified. Surprisingly, he had forgotten to block. Truthfully, he was unable to block such an attack. He could only watch as that light descended from the sky. Suddenly, a wound appeared on his body. That wound was deep. "One sword is enough." Lin Feng's words were still echoing. One sword really was enough to kill him. Yumo was dead. Chapter 662. The dead tree. Yumo was cut into 2. Blood was gushing and splashing onto Lin Feng's sword. Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword was drinking Yumo's blood again. In the air, Yumo's teacher couldn't believe it. He just watched as the blood was absorbed by Lin Feng's sword. The teacher wanted revenge. Yumo Lin Feng had brutally killed his student in front of him. with only one sword attack. Even after he threatened Lin Feng and his student was still killed, he had to persevere until the end. The sword was absorbing blood as it was shaking violently. The light diffused by the sword was becoming even more dazzling. It seemed like it was gaining vitality and vigor. Lin Feng looked emotionless. He turned around and put his sword away. As the blood stopped, the sword seemed satisfied. Then Lin Feng moved back to his original seat as if nothing had happened. Nobody's heart slowed down. Lin Feng had the strength of the 7th Xianqi layer, and his sword intent was level 3. And then there was his terrifying bloodthirsty sword. His sword was murderous. Lin Feng not only managed to injure Umo, but he had even killed him. Everybody needed to reconsider Lin Feng's strength. The crowd had thought that Di Ling and Duan Wudao were the strongest at the great competition of Shuiyu. The third was probably Jun Emoshi, followed by the other 5. But now Lin Feng had proved them wrong. He had just killed one of the 8 most outstanding disciples, which meant that Lin Feng was one of them, so to say. It seems like everybody underestimated the one who obtained the first Jade Key, thought the crowd. Lin Feng had used one sword attack to kill Umo. Lin Feng, with his strength, was maybe one of the 5 strongest cultivators at the competition. The 4 best ones had to be Di Ling, Duan Wudao, Jun Emoshi and Xue Sha, then Ling Xiao. Everyone was impatient to see Lin Feng fight against Kuyao Tong the Dead Tree. If Lin Feng managed to defeat Ling Xiao, he would end up in the top 5. He actually hit his strength well, thought the crowd. They had never thought that Lin Feng, who used to be of the 5th Xianqi layer, would be one of the 5 best cultivators. Who wasn't surprised? They were all impatient to see the rest of the battles. Seeing these battles made them want to cultivate even more determinedly. Are you going to take of the corpse or should I do it? Asked Shui Wuchang to Yumo's teacher. The teacher looked cold. He glanced at Lin Feng and said, I will take care of it. The teacher appeared in front of Yumo's body, grabbed it and left. As he left, a violent hurricane emerged that oppressed Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng was too outgoing. He had killed Umo. It was a terrible offense to infuriate a Tianqi level cultivator. Lin Feng would have to be careful in the future. Shui Wuchang moved back to his original position when he saw the teacher leave. Then he said, since Umo is dead, those who haven't fought against a Umo yet will receive an additional victory and thus an additional point. The crowd was surprised. Since Umo was dead, those who hadn't fought against him were getting an extra victory. That wasn't fair at all because those who were initially able to defeat Umo were treated the same way as those who weren't. The most annoyed was Yun Fei Yang. Umo had fought only 3 battles and had lost against Jun Emoshi and Lin Feng, but he had won against Yun Fei Yang. This meant that everybody else had won against Umo except for him. Tang Yuyu won as before. Apart from Tang Yuyu, the ones who were at the top of the rankings also all won. Lin Feng then won again against the 12th cultivator with the silver sword. The cultivator with the silver sword had forfeited the moment Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword was about to collide with his own. After the young man with the silver sword, Lin Feng fought against Lu Yuqin Yu Xiao Xiao. Because Umo died, everybody had obtained a free win. Yu Xiao Xiao used a zither as a weapon. With that music she could make people's hearts burn by sensing all the vibrations of her melodies. Because Lin Feng's soul was monstrously powerful, Yu Xiao Xiao's music was unable to affect him. Even though Yu Xiao Xiao was extremely strong, she hadn't managed to make Lin Feng give up. In the end, Yu Xiao Xiao lost. Lin Feng had already won all of his 5 battles. With the free victory obtained because of Umo's death, Di Ling, Duan Wudao, Jun Emoshi, Xue Sha and Ling Xiao had also won all of their battles. Of course, there was someone else who had surprised everybody. Tang Yuyu had also won all of her battles. The 6th battle was Lin Feng against Kuyao Tong the Dead Tree. If Lin Feng wins this fight, he will become one of the 6 best cultivators, thought the crowd. Lin Feng and Kuyao Tong were facing each other on the fighting stage. Lin Feng had already defeated 2 of the 8 most outstanding disciples of the competition, Umo and Yu Xiao Xiao. He had killed Umo and crushed Yu Xiao Xiao. There would be no suspense if Lin Feng managed to win against the Dead Tree. He would be one of the 6 best in any case. The Dead Tree was sizing up Lin Feng. He didn't despise Lin Feng considering that he had already killed Umo in one sword attack. Who would insult someone that strong? The Dead Tree couldn't afford to be careless. If the Dead Tree might lose if he was careless. Behind him appeared an actual dead tree. It was his spirit. His nickname was the Dead Tree because his spirit was a dead tree. It was a very particular spirit, and on top of it, he also had another technique called the eyes. All of his abilities were incredibly powerful. "Take out your sword," said the dead tree, challenging Lin Feng. But Lin Feng shook his head. He wasn't unsheathing his sword. "I don't have to sword. You used to think that I only had the golden body skill in the past. But against you, my fire skills will be more appropriate," said Lin Feng slowly. Just then, a terrifying fire appeared around Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng was bathing in a sea of flames, watching the atmosphere burning. Huh! The crowd was stupefied. Lin Feng could also use fire? It made sense to use fire against the dead tree instead of his sword. "Alright, let's see how well it works against me," said the dead tree. His death energy was becoming increasingly violent. It seemed like everything was dying around him. Suddenly several branches grew out from dead tree's arms and hands and moved to surround Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng stepped forwards as he condensed some flames in his hands. He grabbed the branches and started burning them to ashes. What a strong fire, thought the crowd. Several more branches were moving towards Lin Feng that looked like sharp swords. "Burn," said Lin Feng. More fire appeared as he shook his hands. The sun started shining upon those flames and the branches burnt again. There were no surprises at all. "Die!" shouted the dead tree furiously. Between him and Lin Feng, several dead trees with gigantic branches appeared. Everything around them seemed to be dying. It seemed like a new world filled with darkness. He used their branches to surround Lin Feng's body and stretched his hands, filled with death qi, to attack Lin Feng. Ku Yaotong's body now looked like a real dead tree. Chapter 663. The Seven Swords, Death Intent. Lin Feng was surprised. In the middle of all those dead trees he could sense some death intent. Intent wasn't a specific attribute of swords. Other things could have intent like death energy. Provided that the cultivator could understand intent, they could use it. "Burn," said Lin Feng coldly. Again a terrifying fire was emitted, and his entire body was surrounded by blazing flames. Those flames seemed like they could burn everything. Intent. The dead tree's pupils shrank. That terrifying fire contained intent as well. The entire area had turned into an ocean of flames that burned through everything. Those branches disappeared without a trace each time they came in contact with Lin Feng. Lin Feng had been right to use fire against the dead tree. "Die!" shouted a voice coming from within the flames. Lin Feng was his extremely hot cosmos-burning sun fire. The dead tree tried to dodge the flames because touching them would spell his doom. That fire was too hot. "I skill." The dead tree's eyes suddenly looked empty, like that of a dead person. Everything seemed like it was fading. Lin Feng's fire seemed to weaken. Ku Yaotong looked particularly evil at that moment. It seemed like his branches were becoming alive. Huh. Lin Feng was surprised again. Impossible. His eye technique couldn't be so terrifying that it was giving life to the branches. It had to be an illusion or a hallucination. It has to be a trick, thought Lin Feng, determined. Ku Yaotong could make Lin Feng believe things and make people believe he was a dead tree. But when someone realized that it was only an illusion, the death intent could make the branches alive. Lin Feng knew that it was a hallucination, but those eyes filled with death intent were powerful. It seemed like they could influence people's intent. Lin Feng's fire was becoming weaker and weaker. Eye technique, thought Lin Feng. His eyes suddenly started turned black, deep and mysterious. He looked like a demon with his pupils ice cold and emotionless. Now nothing could affect his thoughts or intent. Everything was clear and distinct. Everything appeared in his head just like a painting. Ku Yaotong shivered when he saw Lin Feng's eyes turn black. Those eyes looked so cold. Even his death intent couldn't influence Lin Feng anymore. "It seems like your real strength is constricted in front of me," said Lin Feng confidently. He made a step forwards as his fire regained its passion. That fire again seemed like it could burn the planet. The dead tree's world gradually vanished. In Lin Feng's hand appeared a sword condensed of sun qi. Rising sun. That sword rose like the rising sun, filled with the fire of the sun and fire intent. The sun was shining upon that sword dazzlingly. Ku Yaotong's chi was being lacerated by Lin Feng's sword. Ku Yaotong retreated backwards like a madman. He could only watch as the fire was moving to engulf him. Some of the flames had even reached his body as he nearly started burning. That fire was filled with intent and was destroying a certain amount of his physical strength. Sun fire. Ku Yaotong was shaking because Lin Feng's fire was too terrifying. It was too hot, he couldn't put it out. He might end up paralyzed if he got burnt, or even his cultivation might end up crippled. Everything Lin Feng had said was turning out true. The dead tree chi and the eye technique were powerful, but it seemed like Lin Feng could restrain them. Lin Feng's fire and sword were sufficient to put immense pressure on Ku Yaotong. He had almost no chance to win now. "I'm not fighting anymore. I give up," said Ku Yaotong. He turned around and moved back to his original seat. He gave up because he had no chance of winning. He preferred to save his strength for the next battles. He preferred fighting when he was sure to win, otherwise he might end up injured. Then he would lose the other battles. That was Lin Feng's sixth victory. It seems like there is no suspense anymore. Lin Feng is the sixth strongest now. Lin Feng is the most surprising cultivator at the competition, thought everybody. Lin Feng's strength was overwhelming. He had now defeated 3 of the 8 most outstanding disciples at the competition. People barely recognized him with his natural abilities and his strength. Tang Yuyu then chose to fight against Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao was a bit surprised because there were other people less strong than Ling Xiao left to challenge, but she had chosen him. He held 7 swords on his back. As he started walking to the stage, he asked Tang Yuyu, "Is Lin Feng your boyfriend?" Tang Yuyu was caught off guard. She hadn't thought that Ling Xiao would ask her that. The crowd was just as surprised. Lin Feng, Jun Moshi, Tang Yuyu, Qingming Xian and Yun Feiyang all belonged to Dragon Mountain. They were all very good friends, especially Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu. Their relationship seemed a bit different. Could it be that Ling Xiao was right? Was Tang Yuyu really Lin Feng's woman? "Why are you asking?" Tang Yuyu was a bit defensive. Ling Xiao was a bit too curious. They were there about to fight, not to talk about her private life. "Xiao Yu is my female fellow disciple and I love her. When I see you and Lin Feng, I see the same emotions, so I was curious," said Ling Xiao indifferently. He released some sword chi which surrounded his body, making him look like an extremely sharp sword. People's eyes were twinkling. Ling Xiao was getting angry. He seemed to be offended because Tang Yuyu was challenging him before Lin Feng had. Ling Xiao turned around and looked back to Yu Xiao Xiao as he said, "Yu Xiao Xiao, today our teacher is here in front of everybody. I will show that I, Ling Xiao, can protect my beloved one forever." So that's what he meant. Thought the crowd they understood now. Ling Xiao wanted to show everybody that he loved Yu Xiao Xiao, and that he was strong enough to protect her. Tang Yuyu was going to be a stepping stone for him. "I want to tell you, Yu Xiao Xiao, as well as our teacher, that I am determined and that I am worth it." Ling Xiao slowly turned around and faced Tang Yuyu. "It is an honor for you to fight against such a strong cultivator." Those 7 swords on his back were releasing terrifying rosy chi that dashed to the skies. A strong wind started blowing. He unsheathed all of his 7 swords at the same time. They were dazzling and the chi they emitted was extremely powerful. Those 7 swords contained different colors, and all contained terrifying sword intent. They seemed like they could make deities cry. What a terrifying sword chi. They are emitting level 3 sword intent. The crowd was surprised. Level 3 sword intent was already quite high. Tang Yuyu didn't expect that. She was feeling oppressed by all the 7 swords and their sword intent. Ling Xiao was the strongest cultivator she had faced so far during the competition. She hadn't thought that he would be so strong. She and the crowd had underestimated him. Ling Xiao wanted to prove to Yu Xiao Xiao that Tang Yuyu was his victim. Chapter 664. Between swords, Ling Xiao seemed extremely arrogant, as if Tang Yuyu or Lin Feng were ants. In Ling Xiao's heart there was only Yu Xiao Xiao. He wanted to use his sword to prove to Yu Xiao Xiao that he was worth it. What a terrifying sword level. We underestimated Lin Feng, but we also underestimated Ling Xiao, thought the crowd. That sword energy was terrifying. Tang Yuyu was in danger. Level 3 sword intent emitted from 7 swords. How could Tang Yuyu block that? Now people were wondering if Ling Xiao intended to kill Tang Yuyu or not. Ling Xiao was deploying so many means 7 swords. The situation was perilous for Tang Yuyu. Level 3 sword intent. Lin Feng frowned. He looked at Ling Xiao. He had also never thought that Ling Xiao would show such strength against Tang Yuyu. Ling Xiao thought that Tang Yuyu was Lin Feng's woman, so he wanted to avenge Yu Xiao Xiao because Lin Feng had defeated her. That reason was good enough, but Lin Feng understood that Ling Xiao was mainly trying to show to Yu Xiao Xiao that he loved her. This fight was a stepping stone. Ling Xiao had already shown everyone that he was strong. He was dazzling all the way. Tang Yuyu frowned. That sword chi was way too oppressive. She started to look deathly pale. Tang Yuyu immediately released her spirit, and some extremely powerful chi. She just felt an impending doom was upon her. She thought that she could die. 7 swords, go! Shouted Ling Xiao furiously. The 7 swords dashed to the skies, all dazzling with different colors. Ling Xiao's swords seemed like they could annihilate everything. The 7 swords jetted towards Tang Yuyu's all at the same time. They wanted to cut straight through her. Those swords seemed like they contained Ling Xiao's entire strength and oppressive force. Tang Yuyu had no time to think when she saw all those dazzling swords. 1,000 shadows, she shouted furiously. A myriad of Tang Yuyu clones suddenly appeared. All the clones attacked the swords but were killed. Tang Yuyu retreated back at full speed. She even fell off the fighting stage. Ling Xiao's one attack was monstrous. Tang Yuyu couldn't resist to him. Sword lights were everywhere as Tang Yuyu could only try to avoid them. Give up! Shouted Lin Feng extremely loudly. Then Tang Yuyu said, I give up. Tang Yuyu's soul was damaged as all of her clones were killed. She was left bleeding. It seemed like the swords weren't stopping. The clones had delayed the attack, but they kept moving towards her as if Ling Xiao wanted to kill her. Tang Yuyu raised her head to try and block the swords. But then she saw red lights appear in front of her. Sword chi was dashing to the skies and emitting sharp whistling sounds. Ling Xiao groaned as he called back his 7 swords. He was facing Lin Feng. She already gave up, so I got involved. I didn't violate the rules, did I? Asked Lin Feng to Xue Wuchang. Xue Wuchang nodded. Lin Feng had not violated the rules. Tang Yuyu had forfeited and Ling Xiao had continued attacking. He was the one who had violated the rules. Lin Feng nodded and turned back to Ling Xiao. Qingjian Ling Xiao, you want to kill or hurt people to prove how strong you are. You tell us that you love your woman, and that you can protect her. We don't care about your private life. However, I hope that you can remain friendly. It would be unfortunate if we became enemies. Don't forget that choices are important. Lin Feng then turned around and started walking away from Ling Xiao. The crowd was surprised. Ling Xiao's swords were extremely strong, but Lin Feng's sword was able to stop them. A confrontation between those 2 sword geniuses seemed inevitable. Lin Feng was right, choices were important, especially seeing how he had the first jade key. Ling Xiao had tried to harm Tang Yuyu using Lin Feng as an excuse. Lin Feng walked towards Tang Yuyu, who was bleeding her mouth, and asked, Are you severely injured? No need for sanguine soul grass. I will recover in a few minutes, said Tang Yuyu, trying to assure Lin Feng. She didn't want him to use the other half of his grass. She knew that the grass was very important to him. He was going to use it to save someone's life. It's not that easy. Find a place to recover, said Lin Feng, shaking his head. It was the best method to recover, seeing how other pills were useless. Only extremely precious things would work better. Tang Yuyu sat down and closed her eyes. The battles continued on the fighting stage. Di Ling and Duan Wudao were still extremely strong. Nobody could win against them. Then Jun Emoshi moved to the fighting stage and looked at Ling Xiao. The crowd was surprised that Jun Emoshi wanted to avenge her. However, Ling Xiao had just fought. According to the rules, Jun Emoshi couldn't fight against him. How would a battle between Jun Emoshi and Ling Xiao end though? Jun Emoshi, leave him to me, said Lin Feng. Jun Emoshi turned his head and smiled. He nodded and said, All right, he's for you. Even though I don't like to fight against women, we will all have to fight against them sooner or later, said Jun Emoshi to Yu Xiao Xiao. Ling Xiao and Yu Xiao Xiao were surprised. Seemed like it wasn't such a good idea to bully Tang Yuyu. Now Jun Emoshi was going to avenge her. That battle held no suspense at all. Jun Emoshi could easily defeat Yu Emo, so he could easily defeat Yu Xiao Xiao. Yu Xiaoxiao had already lost, so now she had lost 3 battles total. She was the weakest of the 8 most outstanding geniuses. Ling Xiao could only avenge her. Ling Xiao was sad. He had bullied Tang Yuyu and now Jun Mo she fought Yu Xiaoxiao. However, he didn't hurt her because he didn't like to bully women. The battles continued and none were surprising. Said Ling Xiao arrogantly. He seemed to think that he had already won the battle. Indeed, you are brave, but you chose the wrong person to prove everybody that you are the stronger, said Lin Feng as confidently as Ling Xiao had been. Is that so? You have only 1 sword and I have 7, said Ling Xiao while jumping forwards. In a flash, his sword energies shot out at Lin Feng, destroying the atmosphere on their way. Zir, zir, some subtle sound spread in the air. Nothing could stop those swords. However, when the sword lights started illuminating the atmosphere, the crowd also saw Lin Feng move. He was holding his sword with both hands and was spinning in the air. His bloodthirsty sword was filled with killer force. Lin Feng was also releasing massive amounts of energies. He's crazy, thought the crowd. Lin Feng wasn't like Ling Xiao, he wasn't trying to fight from far away. Instead, he was trying to fight in close combat as he threw his body at his opponent. Did he want to die? Blood-red lights illuminated the atmosphere and followed Lin Feng's body. Right at the moment when everybody thought that Lin Feng was insane, a magnificent light illuminated the atmosphere. Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword was attacking. Boom! A blood-red light illuminated the atmosphere. It seemed like the atmosphere was filled with blood. The blood-red light seemed more and more dazzling as it grew stronger. The loud whistling sounds in the air grew louder. Zirr! That light dazzled people's eyes. The blood-red lights annihilated the other lights and moved straight towards Ling Xiao. That sword wasn't filled with level 3 intent anymore. It had increased to level 4 intent. Buzzing sounds were resonating in people's heads. Many people were clenching their fists and sweating. Lin Feng's sword intent was level 4. Incredible! Lin Feng had hidden his strength against the dead tree and against Umo. He was stronger than they previously believed. The difference between level 3 and level 4 intent was huge. Understanding intent was extremely difficult. Each level was entirely different from the other. It was extremely hard to increase one's intent level, even more so than breaking through to a superior cultivation layer. Lin Feng's sword could annihilate anything. That sword looked like the one he had used to kill Umo. However, a devastating sword was useless if it wasn't fast enough. With speed, it was almost impossible to stop it. Oh! A horrible shriek spread in the air. The blood-red light finally disappeared. Lin Feng and Ling Xiao's energies collided. Terrifying sounds echoed in the air, louder than a horrible shriek. However, the crowd had already forgotten about the energies. They only wanted to see who had shouted. Qingjian Ling Xiao hadn't died. However, his arm fell down on the ground. A moment before, the bloodthirsty sword hadn't killed him. He had moved aside and sacrificed his arm. The crowd was astonished. They had stopped breathing. The atmosphere was incredibly oppressive. When everything calmed down again and the energies disappeared, Lin Feng was still holding his bloodthirsty sword, calmly standing there. Ling Xiao was covering the wound where his arm had been cut off, but blood kept gushing. Ling Xiao looked like he was agonizing. He didn't look arrogant and proud anymore at all. It seemed like the two of them had descended from the sky. What a pity! Such a genius like Ling Xiao had lost an arm. He would lose his reputation. Yu Xiaoxiao was astonished. Even Ling Xiao's teacher was stunned. A moment before, he had been talking so arrogantly and proudly, but now Lin Feng had cut off his arm. That was already the second person who had suffered from Lin Feng's hands. The first one was Umo, who had died, and now Ling Xiao. They had both been one of the 8 most outstanding young people of Shuiyu. Lin Feng had won his 7th fight. Seemed like he was going to finish 5th in the end. Lin Feng saw that Ling Xiao didn't look proud or arrogant anymore. He said, "You were right to declare your love, but you were wrong about using Tang Yuyu to prove it to everybody." Ling Xiao had chosen Tang Yuyu to show Yu Xiaoxiao that he loved her. He made a terrible mistake. Chapter 666. The day before the Great War there was still lots of blood on the fighting stage. Ling Xiao was staring at Lin Feng, but Lin Feng wasn't facing him. Ling Xiao could only watch his back. His eyes were bloodshot and cruel. He couldn't calm down, but he didn't look determined, proud, or self-confident anymore though. He had really made a bad decision. Why had Lin Feng hidden his strength? His intent was level 4. And his bloodthirsty sword was terrifying. It had cut off his arm. But this time the bloodthirsty sword resisted drinking his blood. "Cure it well," shouted Ling Xiao's teacher. Ling Xiao then moved back to his seat and sat down like Tang Yuyu. He took out a pill and swallowed it. His arm had already been cut off, so he would never get it back, so now he needed to heal the wound. If the wound healed, he would be able to keep fighting. Swords are powerful because they can move with the power of your brain. You can kill people from far away, so an arm is not that useful. It can't stop you from moving forwards. Ling Xiao, your arm was cut off, but you can still become a monstrously strong cultivator that reaches the clouds. You cannot give up, said the old man. Ling Xiao opened his eyes and sharp lights twinkled in his pupils again. It seemed like he had regained his motivation to become a strong sword cultivator. Even if he had lost an arm, he could still become an extremely strong cultivator and reach the clouds. His heart started beating faster again. He was filled with ardor. He wanted to become a hero. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the old man. No wonder his words sounded like prayers that could motivate people. He was a cultivator of the Tianqi layer. They were filled with ardor and made people's souls shake. "All right, it's Tang Yuyu's turn," said Shui Wuchang while looking at Tang Yuyu, who was still sitting on the ground. Even though he knew that Tang Yuyu was still recovering, the competition had to continue. Tang Yuyu still needed to heal, but she had to challenge someone. Tang Yuyu opened her eyes. She wanted to stand up, but Lin Feng touched her shoulders and shook his head. She still needed to heal. "You can choose Diling or Duan Wu Dao and forfeit immediately. You cannot fight," said Lin Feng gently. When Tang Yuyu heard him, she smiled. Then she said, "I choose Lin Feng and I forfeit." Lin Feng was speechless. He just saw Tang Yuyu smiling childishly. She was so smart. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. In any case, he would have never fought against Tang Yuyu. She had chosen him, so why not? That was Lin Feng's 8th victory. He had 8 points already, but there were a few more battles left. With his strength, Lin Feng can definitely finish in the top 5. Even if we don't know who the stronger one is between Lin Feng and Shui Sha, Duan Wu Dao and Diling will definitely defeat Lin Feng, thought the crowd. Lin Feng couldn't finish in the top 4. They still had to see Lin Feng's battle against Shui Sha though. Would Lin Feng choose Duan Wu Dao or Diling for his next battle? There was also Jun Mo Shi. Lin Feng was his good friend, so how would their battle end? Diling, Duan Wu Dao, Jun Mo Shi and Shui Sha were winning but weren't fighting each other. Nobody could defeat them though. Initially, Ling Xiao with his 7 swords and level 3 intent was as strong as Shui Sha. He could have even put some pressure on Duan Wu Dao or Diling. But now Ling Xiao's arm was crushed, so he couldn't do much. Amongst the other 8 outstanding geniuses, the Dead Tree, Yu Xiao and Ling Xiao couldn't defeat the 4 best ones. Mo would have never been able to defeat them either. Therefore, the crowd was guessing that Lin Feng couldn't finish in the top 4. Diling, Duan Wu Dao, Jun Mo Shi and Shui Sha were, in their eyes, the 4 champions of the competition. Then came Lin Feng in 5th position. But they were only guessing. Those 5 hadn't fought against each other yet. They hadn't deployed their full strength, so nobody knew how strong they really were. In the top 5, Lin Feng was the one who had revealed his strength the most. But they were convinced that those battles would come soon. The battles continued and they were sanguinary. Apart from those 5 people, there was the Dead Tree. It seemed very difficult to stop him. Even Yun Fei Yang or Qingming Xine couldn't defeat him. Even though Yun Fei Yang had lost against Mo, he was very strong. With his terrifying sword force, he could even defeat Yu Xiao. Everybody was astonished. The competition would show Shui Yu who its real geniuses were. The fights continued and Lin Feng was going to fight his 10th battle. The crowd sighed because Lin Feng had defeated Ling Xiao and hadn't battled since then. Qingming Xine and Yun Fei Yang also forfeited against Lin Feng. It seemed like they were trying to help him. After the 10th battle, Lin Feng still had 4 battles to fight. Diling, Duan Wu Dao, Jun Mo Shi and Shui Sha, the 4 strongest cultivators. Tang Yuyu still needed time to heal. She gave up against Diling. Then she forfeited against Di Ling, so it was Di Ling's 10th victory. Just like Lin Feng. He only had the 3 best cultivators left in Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng had to fight against 4 extremely strong cultivators. Not 3 like Di Ling for battles. After that round the best battles will start, thought the crowd. Duan Wudao still had to fight. Because Jun Emoshi won when Yun Fei Yang forfeited against him. Another battle arrived and it was Shueisha's turn. The crowd looked at Shueisha. He wasn't going to fight against Ling Xiao, it seemed. Instead he was looking at Jun Emoshi. He could wait to fight against Ling Xiao because that battle wouldn't be difficult. With the next battles being terrifying, it was better to choose someone else. Therefore Shueisha chose Jun Emoshi. Jun Emoshi and Shueisha were facing each other, and the crowd was shaking with excitement. 2 of the 5 best cultivators were going to fight. Who would win? Chapter 667. Evil Fight. Shueisha was a genius of the Tian Sha sect. His teacher, Mr. Yin Sha, attached a particular importance to his disciple. He was the youngest cultivator at the competition of Shueyu. Jun Emoshi was the prince of Dragon Mountain and had a chi of righteousness. He could bring justice into the world. Those 2 were opposites, one was benevolent and the other was malevolent. They were both some of the 5 best cultivators of the competition. Their battle would certainly be incredible. People were all firmly staring at the fighting stage. They didn't want to miss a single bit of that fight. This time evil was going to fight against good. Who would win? Vital energy of righteousness, said Shueisha with an evil smile. He was making fun of Jun Emoshi's energy of righteousness. In the continent of the 9 clouds, strong cultivators are respected, no matter if they are evil or good. The most important thing is strength. If you are strong, you can bully others and vice versa. It is not because you are benevolent that you amaze people, it is because you are strong, nothing more. I know, but at least being good enables you to have friends, said Jun Emoshi indifferently, smiling. Shueisha was a bit surprised. Indeed, Jun Emoshi was right. Being strong was important and earned you respect, but evil people were feared. Of course, Shueisha had chosen that path, so he wasn't going to change. He just wanted to be strong. Fighting isn't about making friends, said Shueisha. His face turned paler and paler. It seemed like there was absolutely no blood in his face. He slowly raised his hands and a terrifying evil chi rose. The crowd felt paralyzed even though they were far away. That evil chi made them feel like they were suffocating. It was so uncomfortable. Jun Emoshi groaned coldly as he released some vital energy of righteousness. Shueisha's chi collided with the energy of righteousness and immediately disappeared. The vital energy of righteousness could annihilate evil energies and make them melt. Energy of righteousness? Get ready to endure the real evil energies, said Shueisha, smiling evilly. In a flash, his body disappeared from his original position, and he jolted forward with his fist. A terrifying evil energy was condensed in his fist, and was aimed at Jun Emoshi. Evil energy will just melt in my energy of righteousness, said Jun Emoshi, running forwards. He didn't seem to care about the evil chi. Vital energy of righteousness was moving in the air at full speed. It was oppressing the evil energy. But then the evil energy dispersed and moved in all 4 directions. That evil chi seemed to contain some corpse chi. It smelt like a cadaver in putrefaction. Wow! The corpse chi moved in all directions. The audience felt nauseous and sick. They wanted to vomit. Some people even turned black as if their lives were being swallowed. Maybe they were going to turn into corpses. Oh no! That wind is terrifying. The crowd was bursting out in an uproar. Many of them were moving back chaotically. Very quickly the area emptied. Several people who were weak had collapsed. Their bodies were black, their muscles were twitching, and then they stopped moving. They had become corpses. How astonishing! How terrifying, how morbid, thought the crowd. Their hearts were pounding violently. Being touched by the corpse chi could make people turn into authentic cadavers. Only strong people like Jun Emoshi could resist such energies and fight against Shueisha. Some of the crowd was terrified. They were so strong, those 2 fighters were titans. A majority of the people in the crowd couldn't fight these 2. Rumbling sounds were spreading in the atmosphere. Corpse chi and energy of righteousness collided. Some strong winds were blowing. There was a gray wind and a golden wind, and none of them were disappearing. Shueisha is so much stronger than Umo, thought the bewildered crowd. Umo hadn't been able to resist Jun Emoshi at all. He had just been crushed. However, Shueisha was able to resist against Jun Emoshi's energy of righteousness. Even though he managed to resist against the energy of righteousness, it still seemed like the corpse chi was disappearing slowly. Sea of blood and corpses, said Shueisha when he saw that he was starting to lose the struggle. He couldn't help but be furious. His corpse chi suddenly became even more terrifying. At the same time, his hands became particularly scary. They looked like they were swollen with blood. With each attack, his hands seemed like they were sucking up Jun Emoshi's blood. They were absorbing Jun Emoshi's pure chi. And they wanted to swallow his blood and flesh too. Emotsonglan had a similar attack, thought Lin Feng when he saw that. Back then, Emotsonglan had learned a terrifying evil skill which could absorb people's blood and flesh. It seems that Shueisha possessed it too. But Shueisha's attack was way more powerful than Emotsonglan's. Jun Emoshi was just too strong, and Shueisha couldn't destroy that energy of righteousness. No matter how strong the evil attacks were, it was difficult to destroy energy of righteousness. Whoa! The sound of a mourning ghost spread in the air, and a terrifying corpse energy moved towards Jun Emoshi. Shueisha's hands turned even redder. He was moving towards Jun Emoshi and wanted to catch him. Vital energy of righteousness can annihilate evilness, said Jun Emoshi while walking forwards. His energy of righteousness was rolling in the atmosphere like waves. Those golden waves were rolling towards Shueisha, making all the evil energies melt away. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying sound spread in the air. It seemed like the vital energy of righteousness was infinite. Evil energies were melting and being swallowed. At that moment, the energy of righteousness was dashing to the skies. Jun Emoshi looked like an angel, pure and holy. Energy of righteousness was surrounding his entire body. He looked like a hero bringing justice and destroying evil. How strong, thought the crowd. He had only used vital energy of righteousness, from the beginning to the end. What an incredible accomplishment during such a battle. Jun Emoshi had only learnt how to use vital energy of righteousness, seemingly nothing else. Knowing only one skill and being so strong with it was incredible. Boom! The evil chi kept moving back and disappearing. Shueisha's face turned even paler, he was shaking. Blood was flowing out of his mouth. Jun Emoshi, you resisted until now, so you can be proud of yourself, said Shueisha evilly. His face was deathly pale like a ghost. He released even more evil chi, and from his back appeared a terrifying silhouette. It was a corpse. It was a monumental corpse. That evil corpse seemed like it could make the planet turn into a hell. Around Shueisha appeared several skeletons. The scene was astonishing. Shueisha looked like a real monster. Evil chi corpse invasion, shouted Shueisha furiously. The corpses started moving and roaring. The sounds were so scary that many people were putting their hands on their ears. Around Shueisha appeared a sea of blood. There wasn't an infinite corpse chi though, but it seemed like Jun Emoshi's vital energy of righteousness was moving back. Die! Shouted Shueisha furiously. Just like a corpse, he threw himself at Jun Emoshi. An incredible quantity of corpse energy collided with the vital energy of righteousness. The crowd watched Shueisha's face as an extremely evil and hideous smile sprouted. Annihilation! An evil voice spread in the air. Shueisha seemed like he was turning into a ghost, without a real body. He jumped into the vital energy of righteousness. His skeleton hand immediately crashed into Jun Emoshi's chest and penetrated into it. It's over, thought the crowd. Was Jun Emoshi going to die? Was Shueisha going to kill him? His spirit had made him turn into a skeleton. A moment before, they had thought that his spirit only enabled him to use corpse chi. Do you have anything to add? Said Shueisha with his evil grin. But Jun Emoshi didn't look like he was in pain. He looked calm and serene. Shueisha didn't feel reassured. Jun Emoshi was going to die but wasn't afraid. What I want to say is, you are not the only person who has a spirit, said Jun Emoshi slowly. Immediately after, an incredible quantity of vital energy of righteousness surrounded the evil energy. Shueisha's cringed away. It seemed like his body was going to melt. He lowered his head and looked at Jun Emoshi's chest. There was no blood where he had stabbed his hand. Chapter 668. Evil Night Light. What astonished Shueisha the most was the speed at which Jun Emoshi's injury was recovering. A moment before, he had badly injured Jun Emoshi with his hand, but it was now healing itself. Shueisha raised his head again and saw Jun Emoshi's smile. His heart started pounding violently. He could only move back, he had no other choice. But now Jun Emoshi wasn't going to give him the chance to escape. His vital energy of righteousness was falling down like a waterfall. It crashed onto Shueisha's body and he drowned in it. Shueisha's body gradually became real again. The terrifying vital energy of righteousness kept penetrating into his body and blood started gushing out of his mouth. "Get away!" shouted Shueisha furiously. He used his entire body attack Jun Emoshi and then bounced backwards. He had landed 1 kilometer away. His chi continued flowing, but he was astonished again. A wave of vital energy of righteousness was closing in. Jun Emoshi was getting near him again. Shueisha's heart was pounding. He looked to Jun Emoshi and shouted, "I lost." Jun Emoshi immediately stopped in front of Shueisha, and his vital energy of righteousness faded away. Shueisha had given up. Shueisha had lost that battle. Jun Emoshi had oppressed the corpse chi. But what was his spirit? Shueisha looked at Jun Emoshi's chest and found that the wound had completely healed already. The crowd was also staring at the injury. Such a lethal injury had disappeared. A moment before, they had seen the energy of righteousness had stopped the evil energy from penetrating into the wound. Then Jun Emoshi immediately recovered. What was that? Was that Jun Emoshi's spirit? "What is your spirit?" asked Shueisha aggressively to Jun Emoshi. He had lost, but he wanted to know Jun Emoshi's secret. You cannot blame yourself for the defeat. His spirit is extremely rare, it is impossible to kill him actually. He has an immortal spirit. Any monumental attack cannot kill him because he can heal the wounds. There is only one way to kill him, and that's use enormous physical strength and then kill him in one strike. That will make his soul fly out of his body. Then his immortal spirit cannot save him. However, if you haven't broken through to the Tianqi layer, it is impossible to kill him, said In Sha in the sky. Everybody was astonished. Jun Emoshi had an extremely rare immortal spirit. What a terrifying spirit! Immortal spirit, whispered Shueisha. He looked extremely evil. He looked at Jun Emoshi and said, "I lost, and it's absolutely normal. Your spirit is extremely strong. Otherwise you would already be unable to talk to me right now," said Jun Emoshi indifferently. He then turned around and walked away. Jun Emoshi had won. Jun Emoshi had oppressed Shueisha from all sides. It was terrifying. Jun Emoshi was definitely one of the best cultivators of the competition. Lin Feng might also be able to defeat Shueisha. It meant that 3 of the 4 best geniuses of the competition would belong to Dragon Mountain. The most terrifying fact was that 2 of them would be Duan Wu Dao and Lin Feng, who were from Shuiyu, a small country under the jurisdiction of Dragon Mountain. Was it the rise of Shuiyu? Surprisingly, it had 2 amazing and dazzling geniuses at the competition. What glory! The battles continued. Those who were at the end of the rankings didn't interest the crowd. A new round was about to start, and it was Lin Feng's turn to challenge someone. The crowd was excited again. He was going to fight against an extremely strong cultivator now. Lin Feng already had 10 points. He had to fight against the 4 most amazing cultivators now and had no other choice. This time it would be another clash of titans. Lin Feng could choose Diling, Duan Wu Dao, Jun Emoshi, or Shueisha. Who would he choose this time? Lin Feng slowly turned his head and looked at Shueisha. "You wanted to kill me, so now you will have your opportunity," said Lin Feng to Shueisha. Lin Feng was surprisingly choosing him. What a bastard! He was making him appear as the weakest of the 4 best cultivators. Lin Feng had started from the very bottom, and was considered the weakest cultivator at the beginning, but now he had climbed up the rankings. Lin Feng's opponents were becoming stronger and stronger. This meant that Lin Feng didn't consider Shueisha as strong as Di Ling and the 2 others. Even though Shueisha had lost against Jun Emoshi, he still considered himself extremely strong. "All right, I will kill you and regain prestige," said Shueisha. He felt better again. Outside it was gradually getting dark and night was falling. There was only the full moon in the sky illuminating the area and the fighting stage. During the last battles of the competition, there was no difference between day and night. It was only about battling about who was strong or weak, who was a winner or a loser. Those were incredible battles. Afterwards, people would remember their names. Would they make fun of them, or would they remember them as dazzling heroes? Those battles were going to determine their future and make them appear as dazzling cultivators. I don't like the daytime, I feel my best in the dark, said Shueisha, looking evil. His eyes were twinkling with evil lights. However, Lin Feng just sat there looking perturbed. You always thought that you were the strongest, but now you already lost a battle. How can you still be so confident? I really admire you for still being able to joke, said Lin Feng jokingly. Shueisha became angry. His eyes were bloodshot and fixed on Lin Feng. Wait and you will see, I will suck up all your pure qi. I will swallow your blood and flesh. It will be a cruel night for you, said Shueisha while slowly walking forwards. A terrifying corpse energy invaded the atmosphere of the night. The night seemed even deeper and more mysterious. One couldn't see too far in front of them. Evil skills were particularly efficient at night, and Shueisha was no exception. I also like the night, said Lin Feng, staring at sky and gazing into the distance. It really was a pitch-dark night. Lin Feng turned around and faced Shueisha. There was a piercingly ice-cold energy. It seemed like an evil light. Lin Feng's pupils looked like that of a devil, surprising Shueisha. Junemo, she used vital energy of righteousness to defeat you. I will use an evil power and we will see which of us is the most evil, said Lin Feng. Everybody stopped breathing. Lin Feng had evil powers? Could it be that, apart from his bloodthirsty sword and his golden body and his fire, he had other powers still? What was Lin Feng going to use? How many skills did Lin Feng know really? The crowd was looking at Lin Feng, the unfathomable. They would never understand him. At the beginning, Lin Feng was an insignificant cultivator of the 5th Xianqi layer, and now he was one of the best cultivators at the competition. He just had to defeat Shueisha and he would end up 4th in the end. There was really only one Lin Feng. There were black lights emerging out of Lin Feng's body surrounding him. Those lights made the night look even scarier. The crowd was stupefied when they saw Lin Feng's body. His body was surprisingly becoming bigger. It was incredible. His body turned black and was growing. His eyes were so strange that they sufficed to make people shiver at first glance. That's a demon. The crowd was astonished again. Lin Feng didn't only have a golden Buddha body. At that moment he had turned into demon. The evil lights around his body kept spinning. Each of the gigantic demon steps were huge. It only took a few to arrive in front of Shueisha. Then, Shueisha released some more terrifying energies. Boom! Some corpse chi collided with Lin Feng. This time Shueisha's body flew away. His strength was no match for the demon's body. That demon had a terrifying strength and Shueisha couldn't stop him. Arg! Shueisha looked furious and roared violently. He had just been projected backwards by Lin Feng. He was no threat to Lin Feng. Shueisha pulled a long face. He had already lost against Junemo Shi, who had used his immortal spirit. At least he had an excuse for that defeat, but now it was getting really belittling for him. He didn't even have time to breathe. At that moment, Shueisha was releasing a terrifying corpse chi because he couldn't lose. People couldn't breathe that chi, otherwise they would die and turn into cadavers. Die! Shouted Shueisha furiously. The corpse chi kept rolling in the air and moving towards the demon. Lin Feng's demon body was surrounded by corpse chi. Lin Feng frowned and made brutal steps forwards. A terrifying evil light appeared and crushed everything in the air and broke the corpse chi. The corpse chi couldn't get near the evil lights. At the same time, Shueisha was also running towards Lin Feng. A vortex of evil energies appeared and crashed onto Lin Feng's demon body. A crackling sound spread as if Lin Feng's demon body had broke. So what if you have a demon body? I can destroy it, said Shueisha, looking glum. Lin Feng despised him. Everybody was a tiny insect compared to Lin Feng when he became a demon. Shueisha stopped smiling when he saw Lin Feng's face. He was furious and looked cruel. You used almost all your strength and made me move a little bit. And now you think that you are amazing? Does that make you a genius? said Lin Feng mockingly. Evil lights were twinkling in his eyes and around his body. I will teach you a lesson. I will show you what a real demon is, shouted Lin Feng furiously. His gigantic demon body was moving and Xuexia was shaking. It seemed like the demon was going to crush him. He saw two hands which looked like crosses moving straight towards him. Huh? No. Xuexia seemed like he had suddenly understood something. Immediately after he ran away at full speed. He could sense the terrifying strength emanating from those two black evil hands moving towards him. Get lost, shouted Xuexia. A terrifying cross-shaped physical strength bombarded his body, and at the same time Lin Feng jumped forwards and shouted, Azura body. In a flash, a gigantic sanguinary Azura appeared and attacked Xuexia as sharp as a sword. The two silhouettes looked real just like the demon. It was monstrously powerful. Spirit, Xuexia was astonished. His skeleton spirit appeared again and his body turned into a ghost. It seemed like Lin Feng really liked to fight at night. His evil energies were terrifying. A terrifying and oppressive physical strength started spinning. Xuexia was stupefied. He raised his head and saw Lin Feng's demon body descend from the sky. It looked like an ancient demon descending from the sky, like a king of the night. Boom boom boom. Terrifyingly loud sounds spread in the air. The fighting stage was shaking unceasingly. Xuexia's skeletons kept getting destroyed. Xuexia's body was blocked and constricted by the demon. The Azura threw himself once again. It contained deadly and killer energies. Motionless demon body, said Lin Feng. Another demon body appeared filled with evilness, and it moved towards Xuexia. Xuexia didn't know what to do. He was being oppressed by three demons at the same time. It was almost impossible to resist Lin Feng's demon body. He had used a massive physical strength to counter Jun Moshi, but it was useless against Lin Feng. This battle was really tragic for him. Chapter 670. The arrogant Diling Lin Feng is really terrifying, thought the crowd shivering, watching the demon prey upon Xuexia. Now there was the Azura and another demon. Three demons from ancient times were fighting for Lin Feng, who had turned himself into a demon. Xuexia couldn't rival with him. It only took one demon to defeat him. Lin Feng has so many incredible assets, sighed the crowd. However, they didn't know that Lin Feng initially only had the strength of the Haruka. Later he coincidentally penetrated into the temple of the evil area, and had obtained the memories of the Haruka. If he hadn't learnt the Haruka skill at the Yunhai sect, he wouldn't have been able to deploy such monstrous strength. Lin Feng was really grateful to Shinggong for having given them the opportunity to go and practice in the special areas. Lin Feng had spent 7 days in the special area where his thoughts had turned to reality. He had been able to see a world where good and evil, lightness and darkness had fought. People couldn't imagine how powerful and incredible such a battle had been. Lin Feng had entered a world which belonged to remote ages and had experienced it as if he was a part of it. He had visualized the ancient battles and had been able to participate even. That had allowed Lin Feng to understand the skill of the Haruka and develop his physical strength. One could even assert that the things Lin Feng understood in the special region had made him become even stronger than if he had only broken through to another cultivation layer. Boom boom boom. Another brutal attack crashed onto Xuexia's body which made him groan with pain. He was unable to resist. Now Lin Feng's strength of the Haruka could already rotate 7,000 times. Besides, it was coupled with the demon body. His punches were monstrously powerful. With the demons he could invoke, he was incredibly strong. Xuexia could barely resist against such a monumental strength, and especially against such an evil power. The demons together did not fear Xuexia's trivial evil skill. You wanted to kill me, but now I really wonder how you're going to do it, said the demon, making huge steps. On Lin Feng's demon body was a massive amount of black physical strength revolving all around. Everything had become dark and gray. The three other demons were fighting at the same time. Xuexia was shaking violently as he continued to flee. Where are you going? Asked Lin Feng playfully. His gigantic body rose up in the air and chased Xuexia halfway up into the sky. The pressure was so great that Xuexia had to groan. His body was projected away. The three demons followed him and Xuexia's face drastically changed. He then shouted extremely loudly, I forfeit. Come back, shouted Lin Feng coldly. In a flash, the three demons came back to Lin Feng and penetrated into his body again, as if they had merged all together. What kind of skill is that? Thought the crowd astonished. They were shaking. Lin Feng had turned into a demon and then three demons had appeared. Lin Feng was monstrously scary. In the darkness of the night, Lin Feng looked at the injured Xuexia and said indifferently, "Can you kill me? If you hadn't given up once again, you would have died twice. You wanted to rank first at the great competition of Xueyu." Ridiculous, ridiculed Lin Feng. Those words made Xuexia's face turn deathly pale. Lin Feng was humiliating him. He had destroyed his heart and dreams. Xuexia didn't feel like a strong cultivator anymore, and had lost his determination. Lin Feng was right though. Xuexia had forfeited twice, so his determination and willpower had been crushed. He thought that he would dazzle all the way on the fighting stage. On top of that, he hadn't fought against Duan Wudao and Di Ling yet, but had already forfeited twice. He had lost against Jun Emoshi and Lin Feng. He would have never thought that he would lose against those two. You're a piece of trash. You call yourself a genius, I really wonder why, continued Lin Feng. Then he turned around and slowly walked away. Xuexia was coughing up blood. Lin Feng had humiliated him so much he was trash. He was now considered a loser. He had lost twice and thus lost face twice. Next battle, said Xue Wuchang, whose eyes were sparkling. His heart was also beating faster. Xuexia was already extremely strong. With his corpse qi he was able to make people turn into cadavers. Even ordinary cultivators at the top of the 8th Xianqi layer would have been crushed by him. And then there was his terrifying spirit. Unfortunately, Xuexia had encountered two geniuses who were more terrifying than him. One was Jun Emoshi, who could stop Xuexia's evil qi with his vital qi of righteousness and top of that had an immortal spirit. Then Lin Feng had turned into a demon and had even invoked other demons. All of them had released terrifying evil energies, much more evil than Xuexia's own evil energies. Xuexia had been unable to resist Lin Feng. All he could do was run away and protect himself. He had lost twice. How tragic. In short, a genius had encountered two even more incredible geniuses than himself. This time, the great competition of Xueyu had a few terrifying geniuses. On top of that, two other geniuses hadn't shown how strong they really were yet, Di Ling and Duan Wudao. They had won all their battles extremely easily. Therefore, Xuexia's next opponents would be even more terrifying. It seems like Xuexia is going to rank 5th. Lin Feng and Jun Emoshi can rival for the 4th place, thought the crowd. Their eyes were brimming with excitement. Being one of the 4 top winners of the competition, what glory! Tang Yu gave up another battle. Her soul had been too injured. How could she fight against Di Ling or Duan Wudao? She had no hope to win against them, so she conceded. Then Di Ling's turn arrived. Chapter 671. The Firmament Spirit. How arrogant is Di Ling? Thought the crowd. Di Ling was insufferably arrogant. He despised Jun Emoshi and his vital energy of righteousness and his immortal spirit. Jun Emoshi was an incredibly strong cultivator, but Di Ling despised him. In Di Ling's eyes there was only Duan Wudao. We have to fight to verify your beliefs, said Jun Emoshi indifferently. He looked calm and serene, especially after hearing how arrogant Di Ling was. Let's fight, you go first then, said Di Ling, looking proud and self-confident. He looked extremely sure that he would win. Nobody could defeat him. Jun Emoshi released more vital energy of righteousness which emitted strident whistling sounds. He jumped forwards and landed in front of Di Ling. A terrifying vortex of energy of righteousness started spinning. Finally Di Ling released some qi and force. It was an extremely brutal firmament energy. He stretched out his arm and shook it, immediately attacking the vital energy of righteousness. Di Ling was absolutely fearless. His hand crossed the vital energy of righteousness and continued moving towards Jun Emoshi. Jun Emoshi smiled coldly. He jumped and the qi of righteousness started revolving at full speed. He didn't even pay attention to Di Ling's hand. He was just concentrating on his own attack. Huh. Di Ling frowned and immediately moved his hand back. It seemed like Jun Emoshi's vital energy of righteousness was going insane in the air. Energy of righteousness, destroy the earth and sky, shouted Junemoshi furiously. His strength seemed like it could destroy oceans and mountains. The massive amount of vital energy of righteousness kept oppressing Diling's body. Oomph! Diling groaned coldly. His clothes were fluttering in the wind. Diling moved his hand again, and all around him seemed like the atmosphere was tearing apart. Strident whistling sounds emerged and his energies attacked the vital energy of righteousness. Boom! A terrifying collision-like sound spread in the air. A hurricane formed from the struggle. Junemoshi moved back 3 steps but Diling didn't move at all. He remained standing tall like nothing could affect him. I told you you can't rival with me. It's useless if you rely on your immortal spirit to resist against me. I am not that stupid, said Diling indifferently. A moment before, Junemoshi hadn't cared about Diling's attack. He had just attacked at the same time using his vital energy of righteousness. It meant that he had been relying on his immortal spirit to resist Diling's attack. But Diling wasn't that stupid. He knew that Junemoshi could recover quickly, but he couldn't recover so quickly. Nobody can defeat me. I have the firmament blood. I will have to show you how strong that blood is, said Diling. A terrifying blood chi started spreading in the air as he released some firmament blood chi. Pure chi was roaring and rolling in the air powerfully. How strong! No wonder that Diling is the strongest cultivator at the competition, thought the crowd. Diling's strength was indeed monstrous. His chi could already make people shake, it seemed like it could even make them suffocate. Diling raised his fist, and it seemed like the oxygen in the air was disappearing. Brutal firmament chi had appeared on his fist. Junemoshi, since you're using your immortal spirit, I will show you the strength of the firmament, said Diling while jumping forwards. The atmosphere was rippling all around him. It seemed like a terrifying physical strength was condensed that fist. Vital energy of righteousness, indestructible, said Junemoshi when he saw that terrifying fist. He was fearless. He condensed his vital energy of righteousness, faced that fist head on. Rumbling sound spread in the air. Junemoshi's punch was destroyed. However, Junemoshi didn't frown at all. His left hand was also filled with vital energy of righteousness, and kept moving towards Diling. He didn't stop moving forward for even a second. His right hand was injured but recovered extremely quickly. No use, said Diling indifferently. He had condensed some firmament strength in his left arm and attacked Junemoshi with it. Diling was unperturbed. Junemoshi couldn't believe it. He raised his head and hands, then his terrifying vital energy of righteousness dashed to the skies. Energies were spinning violently as a terrifying dragon appeared from his hands. Boom, boom, boom. The ground was shaking. The terrifying dragon made Diling's body move back and groan coldly. His facial expression looked cold. Incredible, that's incredible. The crowd was awed. They didn't want to miss a single second of that battle. Junemoshi's dragon of righteousness immortal spirit was terrifying. It had managed to push Diling back. With it, Junemoshi didn't need to block attacks, he could just attack unceasingly. Even though Junemoshi had only broken through to the very top of the 8th Xianqi layer, he was monstrously strong. Ordinary cultivators of the 9th Xianqi layer couldn't rival with him. But Diling had just been injured a little bit. They were both incredible. Diling touched his mouth and found some blood on his fingers. Diling's mouth was bleeding. He now looked particularly ferocious. Very good. Your immortal spirit is extremely rare and mysterious. But now I will show you the firmament spirit. Boom! Diling released some firmament blood. And Junemoshi felt like he was being oppressed by a physical strength. The entire atmosphere and fighting stage were shaking violently, shaking at the same tempo as Diling's heart. The firmament spirit is invisible. It uses the strength of the firmament to control the earth and sky, said Junemoshi indifferently. At that moment he had the impression he was in another world. So you know about my spirit. Chapter 672. Duan Wudao's strength. Diling and Junemoshi had been incredible. They were both too incredible. Diling and his firmament spirit with his terrifying punches. How many gene of power did they fists possess? Junemoshi's huge dragon had even been destroyed. An authentic dragon could have been killed by Diling Junemo. She had still lost the battle with his immortal dragon spirit and his vital energy of righteousness. The next one is Duan Wu Dao. His eyes were twinkling. He looked at Shueisha and said, "Get over here." Shueisha was awkwardly looking at Duan Wu Dao. He had already lost against Jun Emoshi and Lin Feng. He couldn't lose this time. If he did, he wouldn't even be able to finish fourth. After all, Diling could probably defeat him just like Lin Feng and Jun Emoshi. He had no chance to defeat Diling, so he had to defeat Duan Wu Dao. I have to win, thought Shueisha, determined. He made a step forward silently and looked at Duan Wu Dao. "Give up," said Duan Wu Dao coldly. He looked really conceited in front of Shueisha. In his eyes, Shueisha wasn't a threat. Duan Wu Dao made Shueisha even more nervous. He had just had the thought that he could win, but now Duan Wu Dao was hurting his confidence. The crowd was also surprised. Duan Wu Dao was arrogant and aggressive. He was probably as strong as Diling. He had just told Shueisha to give up very calmly, as if it was the only logical choice. There was no suspense for Duan Wu Dao because he already knew the result of the battle. "I still want to see how strong the crown prince of Shueyu is though. Why should I give up?" asked Shueisha, looking glum. He felt extremely humiliated when Duan Wu Dao told him to give up. What a lamentable humiliation. Huh. Duan Wu Dao raised his head and stared back at Shueisha. A terrifying light appeared that seemed extremely brutal and dazzling to the eyes. He had the energy of a warlord. What a terrifying warlord, thought the crowd. Duan Wu Dao was like Diling. Was he really only the crown prince of Shueyu? "Die!" shouted Duan Wu Dao. A terrifying golden warlord energy appeared. That golden energy was emitting whistling sounds as it launched towards Shueisha. The entire stadium was shaking. Shueisha was scared to face that horrible pressure. Warlord punch. Duan Wu Dao's fist seemed like it could destroy the planet, just like a peerless warlord. That terrifying warlord energy rose up in the air. Shueisha only sensed that his muscles were twitching. He was trying to release some corpse chi, but it was useless. His corpse chi was insignificant compared to Duan Wu Dao's warlord chi. The crown prince of Shueyu has the blood spirit of the king. Many people were shaking when they sensed Duan Wu Dao's chi. What a terrifying strength. Duan Wu Dao possessed warlord chi and had learnt the warlord punch. How incredible. That kind of power could only be learnt by monarchs. Duan Wu Dao was the crown prince and had the temperament of a warlord. To him, learning such a skill was absolutely normal. Boom! The warlord punch destroyed the corpse chi. It didn't even have time to condense before being destroyed. "Corpse spirit!" shouted Shueisha furiously. His spirit appeared and he transformed into a ghost. A terrifying putrid wind started blowing and moving forwards. The corpse chi was moving straight towards Duan Wu Dao. Duan Wu Dao had wanted to defeat Shueisha in one punch, but he wouldn't allow that. "Humph, pointless," said Duan Wu Dao coldly and aggressively. A terrifying warlord punch then bombarded the atmosphere again. Then Duan Wu Dao holding some kind of strength in his hand. Suddenly, Shueisha felt extremely uncomfortable. It seemed like his putrid spirit was being squeezed by something and then sealed. His face then turned deathly pale. The situation was getting bad for him. "Get lost!" shouted Duan Wu Dao furiously. He immediately bombarded the putrid soul with his fist and Shueisha was projected away. Blood splashed everywhere as he was badly injured this time. "Piece of shit. You made me waste my time," said Duan Wu Dao coldly. He moved back to his seat and his aggressive, violent voice was still resonating in people's heads. Even though that battle had been short, it had been incredible. Just like the kind of battle Jun Emoshi and Diling could offer. Duan Wu Dao had managed to severely injure Shueisha with 2 attacks. Duan Wu Dao is terrifying. He might be the strongest cultivator at the competition, thought many people in the crowd. Some of them had thought that Duan Wu Dao was even stronger than Diling. He was way too strong. He had defeated Shueisha in 2 hits. They all knew how strong Shueisha was. He might end up 5th at the end of the competition, but Duan Wu Dao made him appear as a weakling with his warlord punch. He had even called Shueisha a piece of shit. All of them were geniuses, but there was a difference between certain geniuses too. They weren't all equally strong. For example, Duan Wu Dao was much stronger than Shueisha. Diling was focused on Duan Wu Dao. He would be his strongest opponent. He had always considered him as the other strongest cultivator at the great competition of Shuiyu since the first time he had seen Duan Wu Dao. He had always believed that apart from him, there was nobody else to compete with. Lin Feng was awed by Duan Wu Dao. How strong was he? Duan Wu Dao was brutal and violent. He didn't kill those who didn't offend him but didn't hesitate to kill his enemies. Lin Feng would have never thought that Duan Wu Dao would be that strong. No wonder Duan Wuya believed in his brother so much. Even if Lin Feng finished in the top 9, he couldn't defeat Duan Wu Dao. Duan Wuya perfectly knew how strong Duan Wu Dao was. The sealed door's strength. Shueisha fell to the ground as blood splashed out of his mouth. A moment before, Duan Wu Dao had punched him with the strength of the sealed doors, and had made his body become real again. His ghost form was unable to reduce the strength of that punch. The competition continues, said Xue Wuchang indifferently. He was also very surprised. Duan Wu Dao's strength was incredible. He was wondering how the battles between Duan Wu Dao, Di Ling, and Lin Feng would be. The others couldn't rival with them. Everybody was looking forward to seeing those battles. However, the other battles didn't interest the crowd anymore, because only the very best made them feel excited. The winners would be the most dazzling cultivators in all of Shuiyu. They would draw everybody's attention. At the end of the rankings, Yu Xiaoxiao won against the dead tree. Then there was also Qingming Xian and Yun Fei Yang. Yun Fei Yang was particularly strong with his force of the earth and sky. After that round it was finally Lin Feng's turn again. This time Lin Feng could only challenge 3 people. Di Ling, Jun Emoshi and Duan Wu Dao. Who would he choose? Lin Feng, said Jun Emoshi suddenly. Lin Feng then turned his head and looked at him. Lin Feng, Duan Wu Dao defeated Shueisha. He's not weaker than Di Ling. He's an incredible genius. I wouldn't have thought that such monstrous cultivators as you and Duan Wu Dao would appear in Shuiyu. You can even put pressure on me. I already lost one battle which interrupted my series of victories. Now I will give up and let you continue. What do you think? Asked Jun Emoshi. He had already lost a battle, so his statistics didn't look perfect anymore. Besides, Duan Wu Dao would be extremely difficult to defeat. Jun Emoshi was ready to help Lin Feng stay healthy for his last battles. Shouted Duan Wu Dao furiously. The seal strength and the warlord punch shot out towards Di Ling at an incredible speed. It seemed like time had stopped. Firmament destruction, shouted Di Ling while raising his fist. Rumbling sounds spread in the air. The firmament looked like it was going to get annihilated, and the terrifying warlord punch also got crushed. Only warlord Qi was left. Boom! Another explosion sounded in the air. This time Di Ling was projected backwards and looked even more furious. Very good, Duan Wu Dao, you made me move back a step. Now I will show you the precipice of the firmament blood, said Di Ling coldly. A terrifying blood strength started fluctuating in the air. A powerful qi emerged and surrounded his body. The qi looked like it was boiling. He had broken through to the very top of the 9th Xian Qi layer. His qi of the top of the 9th Xian Qi layer was terrifying. How scary! The crowd was stunned. They had never thought that any of the geniuses at the competition would have broken through to the very top of the 9th Xian Qi layer. Firmament destruction. Die. At that moment, a new fist appeared and bombarded the atmosphere. Warlord punch, shouted Duan Wu Dao looking glum. His punch was terrifying but it disappeared. Boom! Another terrifying strength then landed on Duan Wu Dao's body which made him groan and move back. However, his warlord qi was condensing. Sealed doors appear, shouted Duan Wu Dao. His voice sounded like it came from an ancient time. Suddenly an ancient qi invaded the atmosphere. Chapter 674. Last 2 battles. Boom boom boom. Terrifying sounds echoed in the night. It seemed like time-space doors coming from remote ages were opening. Then they appeared in the air around Di Ling and surrounded his body. Everybody raised their heads and saw 8 sealed doors in the air. The seal strength they were emitting was terrifying. According to the rumors, the crown prince of Shuiyu has the sealed door spirit. The rumors are true then. According to the rumors, the sealed door spirit is monstrously powerful. Thought the crowd when they saw those doors. Those sealed doors looked terrifying and their strength was monumental. Diling raised his head and saw 8 sealed doors. In Shuiyu it was said that the strongest cultivators had 9 sealed doors. Duan Wu Dao already had 8. 9 sealed doors was the highest number the soul could accept. Duan Wu Dao had already broken through to the 9th Xian Qi layer. He had extremely high natural abilities. Diling, with my sealed doors you have no chance, said Duan Wu Dao coldly. His warlord Qi was more and more terrifying. Even if you have the sealed door's spirit, you cannot stop my firmament spirit, said Diling looking even colder. His force and Qi had already reached an incredible volume. We will see if it can't block your spirit, but in any case I can seal your body. Duan Wuya joined his hands and shouted violently, seal. In a flash, the 8 sealed doors moved at the same time and turned into a pitch-black light which emitted rumbling sounds. It seemed like the doors were about to penetrate into Diling's body. Firmament blood, shouted Diling. A terrifying firmament blood dashed to the skies and blocked the sealed doors. It was clear to him that if the sealed doors penetrated into his body and sealed him, his spirit and cultivation would be in danger, and maybe even his life. Gotcha! A terrifying sound emerged in the air. One of the sealed doors had broke, but the 7 others were still there and still surrounded his body. Diling was going insane. His struggling was making all those doors shake violently. It seemed like they could seal his body and his firmament strength. Break! Shouted Diling violently. A terrifying firmament strength emerged as another door broke, turned into a light beam, and then disappeared. He could make the doors break with his incredible strength. No, it won't happen, said Duan Wu Dao. He rose up in the air and started spinning. He lowered his head and then threw himself at Diling at full speed. His terrifying warlord spirit turned into a brutal hurricane. Duan Wu Dao was as fast as lightning. Diling raised his head and looked at Duan Wu Dao. His eyes were bloodshot like he was tired. Die, 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 die. Diling shouted die once and it resonated and echoed in the sky. The firmament qi then regained its intensity. He was using his maximal strength of the 9th Xian Qi layer. Seal! Shouted Duan Wu Dao furiously. A terrifying seal strength rose up that seemed like it could seal anything. He stretched his hands and crackling sounds spread in the air. Some energies were being destroyed. Duan Wu Dao sensed a terrifying pressure on his body. Break! Roared Diling furiously. He sounded like an animal. His blood qi was dashing to the skies. The firmament blood was fighting the firmament. Whistling sounds were hurting people's ears. What a scene! Boom, 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 boom. Explosions seemed unending. The sealed door's spirit was broken by Diling. His exceptional strength was astonishing. Die! However, this time Duan Wu Dao moved, and an incredible amount of warlord qi crashed onto Diling's body. It seemed like an infinite number of warlord punches were crashing onto Diling's body. There were unceasing sounds as his body was pulverized. The fighting stage had some incredible fissures forming. The 2 of them disappeared and the crowd could only sense the ground shaking under their feet. Duan Wu Dao wasn't going to give a single opportunity to Diling. A silhouette streaked through the sky and then landed on the fighting stage. Everybody was stunned. Deng Wu Dao. He was going to be the final winner. A genius from Shuiyu. Diling quickly came out of the ground. His qi was revolving violently as his clothes were torn apart. He looked ferocious as blood dripped from his mouth. Diling had lost. He had never thought that he would lose. He had lost against Duan Wu Dao. Duan Wu Dao would be the real champion and Diling would end up second. Duan Wu Dao, I will defeat you someday and regain face, said Diling. He returned back to his seat and then sat down cross-legged. He was starting to heal his wounds. Even though he didn't look affected, his internal organs had been badly injured. Duan Wu Dao had crushed him internally. Diling had no strength left, which is why he hadn't been able to continue their battle. I will wait for you, said Duan Wu Dao indifferently. He then moved back to his seat and closed his eyes. It hadn't felt good to have his spirit attacked violently as it had. Diling was also monstrously powerful. Phew. The crowd took a deep breath. The great competition of Shuiyu was astonishing. Duan Wu Dao was going to be the great champion. He was going to end up as the strongest champion ever. Di Ling was only going to be the second, and Lin Feng, thanks to Jun Emoshi, would finish third. Di Ling and Duan Wudao's battle had been so incredible that the other battles could only be boring. Maybe the battles between Lin Feng and Di Ling or Duan Wudao would be a little entertaining. While waiting for Lin Feng's turn, Duan Wudao and Di Ling remained calm. Xue Wuchang commenced the remaining fights. The other battles were taking place slowly, one after the other. Jun Emoshi seemed like he was going to finish fourth, Xue Sha fifth, Tang Yiyu sixth, Ling Xiao seventh, Yun Fei Yang eighth, the Dead Tree ninth, and then Qing Meng Xian. The 11th would be Yu Xiao Xiao. Out of the 8 most outstanding geniuses, 3 had ended up with miserable positions. Umo had died, the Dead Tree and Yu Xiao Xiao had disappeared from the top 8 rankings. Lin Feng, Tang Yu and Yun Fei Yang had replaced them. Now there were only Duan Wudao and Di Ling. Everything depended on their battle against Lin Feng. But the crowd was sure about that the ranking list they had pieced together would hold. Duan Wudao would be first, Di Ling second, and Lin Feng third. Slowly, the night became clearer as sun rose up slowly. Everybody had fought, only 2 battles were left. Jun Emoshi had given up against Duan Wudao. Only 2 battles were left. Lin Feng against Di Ling and Lin Feng against Duan Wudao. The entire area around the fighting stage was silent. One could hear the rustling sound of the leaves on the ground and the atmosphere seemed dreary. Lin Feng was calmly standing there, as if the competition had nothing to do with him. The crowd admired Lin Feng for remaining silent. Surprisingly, he had accepted Jun Emoshi's proposition to struggle. He was going to try and fight. He was going to fight against Duan Wudao and Di Ling. He managed to remain calm knowing he was facing those two. Zirr. A terrifying energy emerged out of Di Ling's body. He opened his eyes in which sharp lights twinkled. At the same time, Duan Wudao also opened his eyes. Even though he hadn't been as badly injured as Di Ling, his spirit had still been badly affected. Di Ling had bombarded him violently. Therefore, they both needed a long time to recover. They opened their eyes. Finally, the battles were going to start, thought the crowd. Even if the result of the battles were already sure, they were still impatient to see them. Would they be surprised? Shouted Di Ling furiously. He clenched his fists. He seemed to be in perfect fusion with the atmosphere. The pressure was incredibly intense on Lin Feng's body. Could Lin Feng resist Di Ling's firmament intent? Just when Lin Feng sensed all those oppressive energies, his sword chi reached the first level of intent, then the second level, then the third level, then the fourth. Sword chi was emitting incredible sounds. It seemed like there were many swords suddenly, but it also seemed it was still increasing. That sword chi was getting even more intense. Die! A terrifying light appeared in the sky, red like blood and moving as fast as lightning. It even lacerated the atmosphere in two as if the world was a loaf of bread. The red light then lacerated the firmament. Lin Feng's sword intent was level 5 at that moment. Everyone's hearts were pounding violently. Lin Feng's sword intent used to be level 4. He had used a level 4 sword intent to cut off Ling Zhao's arm before. He must have hidden his strength again. His sword intent could even lacerate the firmament intent. Everything under the sword intent cut like butter. Nothing could stop it. Lin Feng's sword intent was level 5. With his bloodthirsty sword, things were just starting to get serious. Di Ling frowned. In the end, Lin Feng was still weaker than him. Di Ling moved back and grabbed the atmosphere. His firmament intent continued to oppress the entire atmosphere, especially that red light. A terrifying pure chi was insanely moving in the atmosphere. The earth and sky were emitting rumbling sounds. The red lights were bombarded. Finally, the red lights were destroyed. Di Ling raised his head and realized that Lin Feng was in the air and was descending with his bloodthirsty sword. Once again, he was releasing level 5 sword intent and it seemed like nothing else existed. Die! Shouted Di Ling furiously. He rose up in the air and his firmament intent attacked the sword light. He released some more pure chi that was even more powerful than Lin Feng's. Second sword, said Lin Feng. He was moving like the wind, and at that moment his sword was moving towards Di Ling's throat. I will finish you. shouted Diling while clenching his fists even harder. A terrifying oppressive energy moved towards the sword energy again. Diling's hands contained some terrifying pure qi oppressed the bloodthirsty sword as well. He wanted to stop that red sword. Third sword. A blood light appeared again and the atmosphere seemed like it was filled with bloodthirsty swords. An infinite emotionless energy moved towards Diling like a rain of arrows. They wanted to pierce through his body. "Fuck off!" shouted Diling like an animal. He propelled both his hands forwards at the same time. An energy as monumental as a mountain moved towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng had the feeling that an actual mountain was weighing on his shoulders. He had the feeling that he was suffocating under it. Fourth sword. Lin Feng unsheathed another sword. That sword seemed normal. Its energy wasn't dashing to the skies. It immediately moved towards that mountain-like oppressive energy. After the collision, that terrifying mountain of oppressive energy collapsed in 4 different directions. Die! Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword didn't stop moving as it followed his movements. A seemingly infinite bloodthirsty sword shadows moved in the atmosphere. They were blotting out the sky and covering up the earth. The crowd couldn't even see where the sword was anymore. They could only see an incredibly dazzling sword light. The earth and sky were filled with swords. How strong! Who said Lin Feng couldn't fight? Thought several people in the crowd, shaking their heads. His sword intent was level 5. How incredible! Piss off! Roared Diling like an animal again. The firmament energy was shaking insanely, blotting out the sky and covering up the earth. The terrifying amount of sword energy finally disappeared, and the curtain of swords were unceasingly being destroyed. 13th sword, said Lin Feng in a solemn way. Immediately after, the crowd saw a terrifying red light. The crowd could only see the terrifying amount of sword light fade away as the atmosphere became normal again. Diling lowered his head and stretched out his hand. He touched his waist and found blood. When the crowd was astonished to see blood, Diling was injured. He had been injured by Lin Feng's 13th sword. Diling raised his head and looked at Lin Feng. He looked like he couldn't believe his eyes. "You injured me?" asked Diling in a low voice. Lin Feng had surprisingly injured him. "I'm just a weak ant trying to defeat a gigantic tree," said Lin Feng indifferently yet mockingly. Diling had told him he was an ant, but now Lin Feng was using it to mock him. Diling's was extremely strong. The 13th sword had been filled with level 5 intent, but it had only injured him. "You will regret that," said Diling. A terrifying firmament strength then invaded the atmosphere again. His strength had reached the very top of the 9th Xianqi layer at that moment. "Regret? Why would I regret anything?" said Lin Feng, firmly holding his bloodthirsty sword. He still looked calm and serene. Just like Diling, his strength was also increasing. Boom! A terrifying strength invaded the atmosphere. 8th Xianqi layer. Lin Feng had broken through to the 8th Xianqi layer. The crowd was astonished. Their hearts were hurting from the excitement. Lin Feng had broken through to the 8th Xianqi layer and his intent was level 5. That was Lin Feng. Chapter 676. Tearing Firmament Energy. There were many people considering Lin Feng since the beginning of the great competition of Shuiyu, when he had only broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer. He didn't have a terrifying sword intent and people didn't really believe in him. In the evil area, he had then drawn people's attention because of UMO. Many people had thought that Lin Feng would be eliminated much sooner, but with his extraordinary abilities he had managed to make it so far. Step by step until now he had broken through to the 7th Xianqi layer, and then his sword intent had reached level 5, and then he had injured Diling and had broken through to the 8th Xianqi layer. With his determination, Lin Feng could lacerate the atmosphere using his bloodthirsty sword. He could oppress the atmosphere and make people suffocate. Lin Feng had even managed to kill Umo and cut one of Ling Zhao's arms. He had also defeated Xue Sha. All those people were extremely strong, but Lin Feng could defeat them. And now the decisive battles had started. Lin Feng's strength was unruly. Those who were friends with Lin Feng were particularly astonished. Their souls were shaking. The Yu clan, the Wanshou sect, the people from Tianfeng, the Yu clan, and even Xue Sha and Ling Xiao were all staring at Lin Feng in amazement and fear. At that moment, Lin Feng looked incredibly strong. He was becoming one of the strongest cultivators at the great competition of Shuiyu. With his strength, Lin Feng could defeat cultivators of the 9th Xianqi layer. He could destroy the Yu clan, the Wanshou sect, and so forth very easily. How would they survive? The Yu clan and the Wanshou sect were terrified. They used to think that it would take Lin Feng many years to become a monstrous cultivator. Unfortunately for them, the far future was happening much sooner than expected. Now Lin Feng could go back to Shuiyu and destroy the Yu clan and the Wanshou sect easily. Besides, Lin Feng would really do it with his temperament. He hadn't forgotten anything, the holy courtyard of Shuiyu and the others. They had always hated Lin Feng, and all those who had tried to kill him had failed. Now that Lin Feng had become so strong, would he let them off? Yu Qingshan's eyes were twitching. His white hair became even whiter. His face looked even more desperate and desolate. How monstrous! He had always focused on Yu Tianming. He had always thought Yu Tianming would become monster of a cultivator. If he had raised Lin Feng and Yu Tianming next to each other, he would have realized that Yu Tianming wasn't that gifted. And now Lin Feng wasn't fighting in the name of the Yu clan. People considered him representing Yangzhou City. He was dazzling at the competition. He could compete against Di Ling and Duan Wu Dao. Di Ling watched as Lin Feng broke through to the 8th Xianqi layer. His firmament energy was becoming more and more powerful. From the look of his pupils, it was possible to see that he didn't despise Lin Feng anymore. 8th Xianqi layer. Alright, no problem, very good, said Di Ling. His blood was boiling. The energy of his spirit spread in the air, and it seemed like the firmament was going to be destroyed. He shook his hands and it seemed like the earth and sky belonged to him. The intent of the earth and sky were oppressing Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng firmly held his bloodthirsty sword, which was becoming stronger. He then slowly started walking. On the ground appeared marks left by the bloodthirsty sword. The sword intent was cutting the atmosphere. A cut appeared everywhere that Lin Feng stepped. His sword seemed to be indestructible. It seemed like he was alone in the world. The crowd watched him walking towards Di Ling. They were not sure, but they had the feeling that the crevices and fissures were left behind by Lin Feng. Boom! Di Ling also made a step forwards and the ground started shaking again. A terrifying pure qi and firmament intent fell down from the sky and oppressed Lin Feng. It seemed like Di Ling wanted to crush Lin Feng's body. It seemed like the entire planet was going to collapse. What a terrifying force! People's hearts were pounding violently. They could sense Di Ling's pressure from very far away. It was making their heads feel heavy. They had the feeling that something was stuck in their throat. Of course, Lin Feng's sword had the same effect. With his sword intent, he could destroy the firmament intent. Who will win? The crowd was having difficulty see Lin Feng when he penetrated into the firmament energy. It seemed like he was farther and farther away from them. His silhouette looked sharp, but then they heard some light stepping sounds. Suddenly, they had a hallucination that they couldn't see Lin Feng anymore. Instead of Lin Feng, there was only a sword. He had fused with his sword, and with the earth, Lin Feng had disappeared. There was only a blood-red sword illuminating the world. There were no cracking or tearing sounds. There were no whistling sounds. There was a deadly energy and a red light, and that energy felt extremely sharp. The crowd felt like they were going to die when they sensed that terrifying energy. They had the feeling that the terrifying blood-red light was going to destroy them. At the moment when everything became calm again, two silhouettes appeared on the fighting stage. Di Ling was motionless. Lin Feng was still holding his bloodthirsty sword whose tip was touching the ground. There was some dust around. Neither of them were emitting a sound. The atmosphere was oppressive. Is it finished? The crowd hadn't seen anything. Who won? They just wanted to know what had just happened. The energies had almost killed them. A strong wind was still blowing and brushing away on the crowd, but there was no sound and no odor. Something is dripping, said someone, breaking the silence. Then they followed the direction where the sound had come from, and they were astonished again. They saw several red drops near Di Ling's feet. Something was dripping from his body. Even though it was small, it was significant. Di Ling got injured again. It's dripping, blood is dripping. The crowd was astonished. Blood continued dripping. Lin Feng moved, but it was to sheath his bloodthirsty sword on his back. An ant? I managed to destroy your firmament energy, said Lin Feng indifferently. He looked extremely calm. Everyone was silent. He had won. Lin Feng had won with that sword. Lin Feng had managed to defeat Di Ling. A terrifying pure qi started rotating around Di Ling's body. He wanted to cure his wounds and stop the bleeding. He moved back to his seat without saying a word, and then sat down. Di Ling's actions proved that Lin Feng had won. The crowd couldn't believe their eyes. Lin Feng had surprisingly defeated Di Ling. Lin Feng wasn't third anymore. He was second. If Lin Feng defeated Duan Wu Dao, he would earn the first place at the competition. The exception, the total exception. To everyone's great surprise, Lin Feng had managed to make it that far. Nobody would have believed it. The crowd remembered back to when Lin Feng had obtained the first jade key. Was it only luck? At that moment, Lin Feng was about to start the very last battle of the competition to become the most dazzling competitor. Chapter 677. The final battle. The crowd got over their previous surprise and became excited again. They were wondering what would happen during the last battle. Their blood was almost boiling. They had considered Lin Feng an insect without importance the first time they saw him. They had never thought such a thing would happen in the end. Maybe that 1,000 years after, Lin Feng would stand at the top of Shuiyu with his bloodthirsty sword. Maybe Lin Feng's grandchildren would even say proudly that that sword belonged to their ancestor, and with it Lin Feng rose. Lin Feng from Shuiyu. The crowd was looking at that young man. He looked proud. They would always remember his name and how astonishing he had been. Lin Feng was a miracle. Then they turned their heads around and looked at Duan Wu Dao. He had calmly observed everything, but he who always looked aggressive, violent and cruel, didn't look that calm anymore. He had always thought that his strongest opponent would be Di Ling. He had never thought that Lin Feng would defeat Di Ling. It meant that he wasn't finished. There was one more real battle for him to fight. He had never thought that his final opponent would be Lin Feng, his compatriot. In the air, Xue Wuchang looked down at Lin Feng and smiled. How rare. Two people from Shuiyu were going to fight each other for the final battle of the competition. Shuiyu was sure to be the most dazzling country at the great competition of Shuiyu. In the past, a country under the jurisdiction of an empire had never even obtained the third place at the competition. And now, the first and second had already been obtained by two cultivators from Shuiyu. That was mind-blowing. Lin Feng, how long do you need to rest? Asked Xue Wuchang. Lin Feng had just fought against Di Ling and had used lots of energy. If he wanted, he could have a rest. The last battle was the most important fight for him, so he couldn't just gamble and continue hastily. Lin Feng could choose himself. He could rest 3 or even 5 days. The crowd looked at Lin Feng and asked themselves, when would the final battle happen? I don't need to rest. Let's fight now, said Lin Feng. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng didn't need to rest. He was going to fight right away. After fighting against Di Ling, Lin Feng didn't need to rest. He wasn't even a little bit tired. Lin Feng, you need to rest. Don't worry yourself, said Xue Wuchang. He didn't approve of Lin Feng's decision. Duan Wu Dao had defeated Di Ling, and he was able to deploy 8 sealed doors and seal people's bodies and souls. That kind of seal was almost impossible to remove. Don't worry, I didn't use much energy a moment ago, said Lin Feng facing Xue Wuchang and smiling. Everybody was astonished. They all exchanged strange expressions. A moment before, Lin Feng had defeated Di Ling, but he hadn't used much energy? Wasn't he humiliating Di Ling? Di Ling opened his eyes. He didn't want to observe Duan Wu Dao and Lin Feng's battle. He wanted to see the battle with his own eyes. What would be the result? Would they fight? He really wanted to see the finale. Duan Wu Dao had also defeated Di Ling and Lin Feng had also defeated him. Who was stronger between Lin Feng and Duan Wu Dao? Alright, since you insist, you can fight immediately, said Xue Wuchang. He didn't try to prevent Lin Feng anymore. Besides, Duan Wu Dao immediately jumped forwards and started walking slowly. He was looking at Lin Feng. I know that you want to get married with my sister, right? Said Duan Wu Dao. Duan Wu Dao was the crown prince of Shuiyu, and even though he only devoted his life to practicing cultivation and seldom taken care of external affairs, He knew about important events such as his sister's wedding. He also knew that Lin Feng had destroyed the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. He also knew that Duan Wuya had told Lin Feng to challenge Duan Wu Dao, so he could marry Duan Xian Yi. Even though he knew all those things, he had never personally appeared. Because he had dedicated his entire life to cultivation, he was now at the top of the fighting stage at the great competition of Shuiyu. He could stand there proudly where everybody admired him. Caring about other things would have been pointless, so he didn't care about them. He had been preparing for that final battle at the great competition of Shuiyu for such a long time. The terribly violent and brutal crown prince of Shui had seldom shown his real face. The crowd was confused when the crowd heard Duan Wu Dao. There was something else going on between Lin Feng and Duan Wu Dao's family? Lin Feng wanted to get married with Duan Wu Dao's sister, the princess of Shuiyu? I am really surprised to have you as my final opponent. We are here together and we are both from Shuiyu. That is an honor for our country, that is glory. However, the final winner of the great competition of Shuiyu will be me. You will have no chance to defeat me. You don't need to listen to Duan Wuya. You can marry my sister, and then we'll go and conquer the continent of the 9 clouds together, said Duan Wu Dao. He had wild ambitions and the soul of a conqueror, but he was so nice to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was so young and was able to defeat Di Ling. He could definitely conquer the continent of the 9 clouds. I don't need you to agree, I don't need Duan Wuya's authorization either. I will struggle to do my best and finish first. Then when I go back to Shuiyu, nobody will dare offend me. Duan Xian Yi will welcome me with open arms. Everybody will congratulate me, and I will share my glory with Duan Xian Yi, said Lin Feng indifferently. Since he was there already, he was definitely going to try and finish first. Nothing could stop him anymore. The glory wouldn't be his alone, he would share this glory with his mother, his father and all the ones he loved. Lin Feng wanted that glory. Duan Xian Yi and Lin Feng would get married and live happily in love. If he went back to Shuiyu after winning the competition, who would criticize him, who would offend him? Who would stand in his way? He wanted to finish first and he would do his best to finish first. That girl Xian Yi must be really happy, whispered Qing Chan. She said that with a radiant smile on her face. She looked sweet and gentle. Since you are from Shuiyu, you know my temperament is bad. I easily lose temper, said Duan Wu Dao. His energies were becoming denser. He was staring down Lin Feng. The crown prince Duan Wu Dao, unruly. Good to those who are good but will kill those who are bad to him. However, you first have to defeat me before you start talking big. Don't act like Di Ling, if you lost then you'd lose face, said Lin Feng indifferently. Di Ling had threatened him and the results had been catastrophic. Let's fight then, shouted Duan Wu Dao violently. A terrifying warlord Qi emerged out of his body and attacked Lin Feng. At the same time, he closed the space between himself and Lin Feng. A terrifying golden color appeared all around Duan Wu Dao. Violent warlord punch. Duan Wu Dao raised both his fists at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was standing there calmly. Sword cultivators were calm and serene. With his sword he could annihilate everything. Die! His sword rose up in the air and some level 5 intent invaded the entire atmosphere. The red light was dazzling as it moved straight towards Duan Wu Dao. Seal! Shouted Duan Wu Dao. He immediately released some sealed doors intent. The qi was getting more and more violent. It seemed like the red lights were being stopped by those energies and were becoming weaker. Lin Feng's sword cultivation was incredible. With his sword intent he had managed to lacerate Di Ling's firmament blood energy. Di Ling had a firmament spirit and understood firmament intent but had still lost. Duan Wu Dao had 8 sealed doors and understood sealed doors intent. The atmosphere seemed to only possess sealed doors energies. Lin Feng looked emotionless as his bloodthirsty sword rotated, and a red light turned into a vortex. Whatever went in that vortex seemed to disappear. Disappear! The warlord fist crashed into the sword light. Duan Wu Dao's sleeves were shaking. A terrifying sealed doors energy oppressed Lin Feng's sword. However, Lin Feng's sword wasn't moving back. It was moving forwards with indomitable will. Subtle sounds were spreading in the air and emitting whistling sounds. Everything was getting destroyed. Even the sealed doors were being destroyed. Chapter 678. Sealed doors. Duan Wudao looked disheartened. Lin Feng was going to become a monstrously strong sword cultivator. Lin Feng's sword intent was level 5 and each of his attacks using the bloodthirsty sword were terrifying. Duan Wudao had seen Lin Feng's speed during his battle against Diling. Lin Feng was extremely fast as lightning. Even if Duan Wudao remained self-confident, he didn't despise Lin Feng. Duan Wudao made a step forwards as his sealed doors moved in to seal Lin Feng. Back punch, shouted Duan Wudao. His punch covered the earth and moved towards Lin Feng. Duan Wudao trampled on the ground and he rose up in the air. His warlord qi was terrifying. He then shouted violently, "Seal!" Lin Feng was surrounded by sealed doors. He was backed into a corner. The blood-red sword was going insane, annihilating the different punches. Lin Feng raised his head and saw Duan Wudao's warlord punches falling down from the sky without limits, as if the gods wanted to crush him. A terrifying sword energy rose up and Lin Feng's entire body turned into a sword. There was only sword qi surrounding him, which was destroying the endless warlord punches. Lin Feng moved and his bloodthirsty sword followed. Lin Feng's 13th bloodthirsty sword attack was extremely fast. Lin Feng's body looked like a beam of light. Seal! Boom boom. Explosions sounded and then the two people descended down to the stage. Duan Wudao moved back a few steps and stretched his hand out. In it appeared something black. It was some sword qi which had hurt him. Lin Feng looked at Duan Wudao who was still releasing some terrifying brutal qi. No wonder you were able to defeat Diling. You've broken through to the 8th Xian Qi layer, and your sword intent is level 5. People of the Xian Qi layer cannot defeat you anymore. Only someone with Tian Qi layer strength can defeat you now. However, I am an exception and I will not give you any opportunity. Duan Wudao then released an incredible ancient sealed doors energy which seemed to come from remote ages. 8 doors appeared in the air in full antiquity. Those 8 doors were incredible. They contained such terrifying sealed door energy. Sealed doors. Again. Could Lin Feng resist against those 8 sealed doors? Diling had used incredible strength to break free from those 8 sealed doors. He had fought to break them, however, they had worn him down and he lost. Now how would Lin Feng deal with those sealed doors? Lin Feng looked at those 8 doors and a terrifying fire emerged out of his body and rose up in the air. He was using his entire strength of the 8th Xian Qi layer. The crowd was staring at Lin Feng's fire. Would Lin Feng be able to defeat those 8 sealed doors with fire? How was that possible? Diling had used a monstrous amount of strength to break through those doors. How would Lin Feng be able to destroy them? It was impossible. He would never be able to break those doors. His fire made the ambient temperature rise drastically. Lin Feng was moving back. It seemed like he was trying to gain some time. "Are you trying to escape?" asked Duan Wudao smiling. He then shouted furiously, "Seal!" Then the 8 doors turned into 8 black beams of light and shot towards Lin Feng. "Black Lotus," whispered Lin Feng in a deep voice. He condensed his entire fire qi. The qi in his body started circulating insanely. Lin Feng then released some incredible deadly energy. The crowd only saw Lin Feng raise both his hands and a black lotus appeared there. It was pitch black, gloomy, and filled with deadly energies. Everything was happening extremely fast. It was so fast that people couldn't see clearly. The 8 sealed doors moved towards Lin Feng's body and Lin Feng opened his hands. He then shouted one word, "Destroy." Boom! At the moment when the 8 sealed doors fell down, a terrifying deadly energy spread in the air. The crowd only saw a pitch-black light in which Lin Feng drowned under. The entire crowd suddenly had the sensation that they were going to suffocate and die. The sealed doors were burning in the atmosphere, and then they disappeared without a trace. Everything became calm again as Lin Feng appeared. He was still standing proudly on the fighting stage. He had broken the sealed doors. They broke. The crowd was astonished, staring at Lin Feng. That terrifying black lotus had destroyed the 8 sealed doors. Cough cough. Duan Wudao coughed and his muscles twitched. His soul had already been severely affected during his battle against Diling when the latter had destroyed his sealed doors. Now Lin Feng had defeated them again, further injured his soul. "Do I need to escape?" asked Lin Feng indifferently. Duan Wudao's sealed doors had disappeared. "You used all your pure qi? Now let's see how you want to continue the battle, said Duan Wudao coldly. Lin Feng smiled and said, you cannot use your sealed doors indefinitely. They are defeated for the remainder of this battle. Your spirit is injured. How can you keep battling? Lin Feng's strength of the Harukas then started rotating in his body. Several black lights appeared and made the entire atmosphere turn dark. Lin Feng was surrounded by a dark world. Lin Feng had used these evil powers against Shueisha before, and now he was using them against Duan Wudao. Duan Wudao had asked Lin Feng how he intended to keep battling, and Lin Feng responded. Duan Wudao looked at the evil body. The crowd was unable to predict the result of the battle. Who would be the final winner of the great competition of Shuiyu? You will see, said Duan Wudao. He then raised his head, looking as proud and arrogant as before. He stretched both his hands and a chi started rolling in them. Immediately after, several doors appeared. Real geniuses can make their spirit fuse with their body. Even without making my spirit appear, I can seal people's bodies. I will teach you what a real genius is. The crowd listened to Duan Wudao and watched his sealed doors. Their hearts were pounding at full speed. An authentic genius? An authentic genius could use the strength of his spirit without making it appear? They understood what it meant but couldn't understand how to do it. Duan Wudao threw himself at Lin Feng and appeared in front of him. The sealed doors moved towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng condensed his terrifying evil energy and his fist assaulted the doors. However, one of the doors immediately penetrated into Lin Feng's body. The crowd was stunned. Maybe that door wouldn't be powerful enough to seal his body. Seal! Shouted Duan Wudao furiously. An incredible amount of doors were moving towards Lin Feng and surrounding his demon body. Warlord punches! Duan Wudao released some more terrifying warlord chi and jumped towards Lin Feng. Explosions sounded and Lin Feng seemed like he couldn't take much more. Die! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. A terrifying evil punch emerged from his body and collided with Duan Wudao. At the same time, an Azura body appeared. Break! Duan Wudao's attack then cut through Azura like a knife through butter. The Azura immediately disappeared. The evil light disappeared and Lin Feng was projected backward a few dozen steps when the last punch crashed onto Lin Feng's body. He looked a bit stunned. Duan Wudao didn't chase him, his soul was shaking. His illusionary sealed doors were easy to use. Duan Wudao had used lots of strength and now he had to win. Lin Feng would lose. Duan Wudao had to be the strongest cultivator at the competition. He was the most dazzling cultivator at the competition. Nobody else. The demon body was broken. Lin Feng knew perfectly well that Duan Wudao had used all his strength a moment before to finish him. He hadn't controlled himself. His soul had been badly hurt. Terrifying sealed doors energy had moved into his Lin Feng's body. Now you have used all your pure chi and your demon body is broken. Your body sealed. How can you fight? Shouted Duan Wudao furiously. He was standing there like a hero for the crowd. It seemed like Duan Wudao was already the final winner. Chapter 679. The climax, no pure chi, broken demon body, body sealed? Lin Feng was looking at Duan Wudao with a smile forming from the corner of his mouth. Are you sure that you sealed my body? Duan Wudao looked at Lin Feng, smiled and said, no need to fight like that. I saw the doors seal your body. You'll have to find a solution to break the sealed doors inside of your body. Is that so? You are so smart, said Lin Feng. Then a terrifying spirit energy emerged in the air. Break! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. In a flash, a terrifying sealed door's chi emerged out of Lin Feng's body and disappeared in the air. Lin Feng had managed to break the doors. Huh! Duan Wudao's smile suddenly froze. The seals had been broken? Lin Feng had managed to expel all the sealed doors and break them. Now what do you have to say? Asked Lin Feng indifferently. Duan Wudao was stupefied. He looked hideous. Lin Feng had surprisingly managed to break the sealed doors. How had he done that? The crowd was astonished too. They had thought that the sealed doors had already sealed his body. There was no suspense anymore. Lin Feng's voice was still filled with self-confidence now that he had broken the seals. So what? How can you still fight me? Said Duan Wudao, narrowing his eyes. He released some more warlord qi. How did Lin Feng intend to keep battling? You have already used your spirit, but you have to remember that I haven't used mine, said Lin Feng indifferently. Then, a terrifying roaring sound spread in the air, and next to Lin Feng appeared a terrifying purple light which launched at Duan Wudao. At the same time, 8 dragon heads appeared from Lin Feng's back and dashed to the skies. There were 8 dragon heads but only one body. Those heads were chanting the song of the dragons and looking at the sky as if they had wanted to swallow it. 8 heads. Yu Qingshan was stupefied. He was stared at Lin Feng's celestial fang spirit. It already possessed 8 heads. One more head and it would have 9 dragon heads. The final form of the dragon. At that moment the dragon heads didn't look like a spirit anymore. They looked like a real beast. 8 heads. The crowd was astonished. Not many people had seen Lin Feng's spirit and were just discovering it. He possessed a terrifying dragon. Who was going to win that battle? Lin Feng was still standing there. His purple spirit had surrounded Duan Wudao's body. Duan Wudao wasn't as strong anymore. He was attacking the purple spirit unceasingly, but it was constantly reappearing again. He was unable to completely destroy the purple spirit. Duan Wudao froze when saw the 8 dragon heads. Lin Feng, with the strength of the 8th Xianqi layer, could also release such a monstrously powerful spirit. Maybe that his soul was stronger than the 8th Xianqi layer. Indeed, it is the power of his soul. Duan Wudao was astonished. He looked like he had suddenly understood something. Lin Feng had managed to expel the sealed doors out of his body, because he had used his soul to attack it. That was the only explanation. The sealed doors hadn't actually been able to seal Lin Feng's body. Roar! The dragon roared and the 8 heads moved towards Duan Wudao. They were all opening their gigantic mouth and showing their fangs. They wanted to swallow Duan Wudao. Duan Wudao took out a pill and swallowed it. His strength came back to him and he returned to normal. A terrifying warlord energy emerged in the air, and Duan Wudao shouted furiously, "Warlord punch!" Pill. Lin Feng smiled coldly and also took out a pure healing pill. In a flash, his pure qi came back to normal. A metallic sound spread in the air and his bloodthirsty sword appeared again. Lin Feng was firmly holding it as he slowly started walking towards Duan Wudao. The sword energy was dashing to the skies and on the ground appeared several fissures and crevices. Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword was leaving some terrifying marks on the fighting stage. There was only sword qi around Lin Feng. Duan Wudao suddenly sensed that terrifying sword qi, while his warlord punches were occupied with dragon and its 8 heads. He was content with them both. A terrifying sword intent crashed onto his body, and it seemed like he was going to be swallowed. The sword qi was getting stronger and stronger. It was also getting colder and colder. Arg! Duan Wudao shouted furiously. He released a warlord energy which blotted out the sky and covered up the earth. The dragon was projected backwards. The purple snake were obliterated into pieces. But Lin Feng was still slowly walking forwards, his bloodthirsty sword in hand. Duan Wudao turned and lowered his head. He looked at Lin Feng in a calm way. Duan Wudao didn't want to give up, but, "I give up." Duan Wudao knew that he had lost the battle. He didn't have a chance to win anymore. That terrifying sword energy slowly disappeared. Lin Feng looked at Duan Wudao just as calm as before. A real genius? Lin Feng put his sword away and said those few words to Duan Wudao. Duan Wudao was astonished. He had just told Lin Feng that he would show him what a real genius was. Duan Wudao looked at the calm Lin Feng. He was serene and so young. Lin Feng looked outstanding, but he hadn't reached maturity yet. Lin Feng had been strong enough to make it so far though. Lin Feng was the winner of the great competition of Shuiyu. "You didn't disappoint me," said Jun Emoshi, smiling warmly and friendly. Lin Feng had proved to Jun Emoshi that he had made the right decision. Lin Feng had really managed to do it. This time he had finished first. Relying on some incredible skills and techniques, he had won. He had made it so far step by step. He had risen up to the top. Tang Yu was also smiling resplendently. It was like a dream. She remembered the first time she had met Lin Feng at the restaurant. He had downed all the expensive liquor as if he hadn't care at all. Now, he was the most outstanding disciple at the competition and was respected by millions of people. No bad, thought Qingming Xian with a sexy smile forming from the corner of her mouth. She looked a bit surprised. Yunfei Yang took out a bottle and drank some hot unit. How comfortable. Xiaoye, Hanman and Pajun all looked proud of their friend. They were clenching their fists. They had never thought that Lin Feng would be able to make it that far. Of course, many others were furious. Yu Qingshan had mixed feelings. He could only sigh. Yu Lushui, Tung Wu Yao, the people of the Yu clan and of the Wanshou sect, Shuaisha, Ling Xiao, and several others were looking at that proud man and with regret. They were furious. They had never thought that Lin Feng would come out on top. The crowd was astonished but then calmed down. Nobody said anything. They were only looking at that proud-looking young man with new eyes. Lin Feng had no idea of all those things happening around him. He raised his head and looked at Xue Wuchang. Lin Feng was smiling resplendently and magnificently. He looked like a little sunshine. He had managed to finish the great competition of Xueyu and had won. He was first. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.